Like sweet morning dew, I took one look at you, and it was plain to see you were my destiny. You're all I need, to get by.
Mary, can we talk about this chicken commercial?
Oh, wow. Yes, we can talk about that.
What? Okay. You haven't talked about it at all yet, right?
No, because everyone was doing what they were doing and saying what they were saying. And I just felt that there was no need for me to say anything because everyone was running with it and just crucifying me and going crazy and going in. I said, it's too much going on for me to try to stick my head out there and say anything. So I just pulled back and I watched everyone and everything. And it's just something that, I thought would have been something great for my, a branding opportunity. It never was a chicken commercial. It was about a sandwich. And I was singing about the ingredients in the sandwich. That's what I thought it was. I went online to see it. I mean, not to see it, to listen to the remix that I did with Fat Joe. And I'm looking for that. I'm looking for another round. And all I could see is Burger King and chicken and buffoonery. And I'm like, what the heck? What? And wow. And it just broke my heart. And like people were just going crazy. And I understand the laughter and the jokes and the stuff that was happening. That's all good. You're supposed to do that when something like that happens. It made people's websites go up. It made people get more ratings on their radio stations. Cool, whatever. Hee, ha, ha, ha. But the thing that hurt me is when people were just starting to say vicious, negative things that didn't even have nothing to do with that. And a lot of people, that what this did, it exposed everyone and everything and that was in my life. And it showed me who my friends are. And then I had people, oh God, right now, if I never knew, I know right now. And so many people reached out to me on a level of, we know what you were trying to do. We saw how it went terribly wrong. And my brother, Busta Rhymes, who I love to pieces, he reached out. I mean, while I was like wanting to crawl under the bed, it felt crazy how I felt. Oh, you don't even know. I had to go to the airport the next day when it was hot off the press.
And, with a hoodie and shades on.
But I didn't even have a hoodie. I just thugged it out and just walked with my head up and say, hey, what I'm going to do? And so Busta Rhymes hit me. He was like, are you okay, sis? I see what you were trying to do. Who else? Fat Joe hit me. He was like, yo, we don't care about that stupid chicken commercial or whatever. we love you, Mary. We love you, and we know what you was trying to do. And it was a mistake, when you look at it at the end of the day, because people look at it as a mistake, you know what I'm saying? But I did it because I thought it was something that wouldn't come out like that. You know what I mean?
What was interesting to me is that the David Beckham commercial was positioned in this like kind of, I don't know, like fantasy kind of iconic kind of way.
Right. It all was supposed to be, it was sold to us that I would be shot in an iconic way and it was going to be great. And I used my song, one of the melodies from my song to do it, to sing the ingredients. Like I would never just bust out and start singing about chicken and chicken wings and like, come on, I get what's going on out here. So, I was looking for someone to have mercy. But no one had mercy, and it's cool. It was a learning experience.
Yeah, because Jesus, that's gotta hurt your feelings. Like that has to be like.
Let me tell you something. It hurt my feelings. It crushed me for like 2 days. But after those 2 days, I got up and I kept going. And online, the day it was going off, all my friends and people, Star Shell reached out. She was going crazy. Like I'm ready to go in for these people. I'm ready to go in on these people for you. And it just meant so much to me. And of course, was there for me.
To this day, I still haven't watched it.
Andre Harrell.
I refused to watch it with what everybody was saying.
Right. My real family members stood up. But all those fair weather friends and them fake and them sucker. You know what I really want to say?
I know.
That said, that I was cool before that happened or whatever. Or online popping junk. you know, saying all kind of stuff to sell their, you know, do whatever they want, you know, to get their thing taken off. And these are people that I thought were down and that were cool and that were like friends. Yeah. And it's just awful to find out, like, you know, when the pressure's on, that's when you're supposed to stick together. If we all standing in something that's stinking, we all standing in it, you know? Yeah, 100%. And, you know, people was jumping out saying, oh, I didn't do that, not me. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it's like, who asked you? And that's the kind of stuff that hurt my feelings so bad. And, you know, I want to apologize to everyone that was offended or thought that I would do something so, you know, disrespectful to our culture. I would never do anything like that, you know, purposely. I thought I was doing something right, so forgive me if it hurts you.
When you saw the version that came out, when you saw what they leaked, how did you feel about it?
Oh my God, my heart dropped down to my stomach.
You hated it.
Oh my God, like I got this sweat, you know, you get that sweat. Right. And I said, real calm, I said, this too shall pass. But it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
New at 11 tonight, 2 would-be customers are very upset that local Apple stores refuse to sell them products after hearing them speak a foreign language. Channel 2's Amy Napier-Viteri is live in Alpharetta with why Apple is saying that it had to turn them away. Amy.
Justin, I spoke with 2 people, both of them U.S. citizens, who say they went to 2 different Metro Atlanta Apple stores, including the one here at North Point Mall. They say employees turn them away from buying iPads and iPhones after hearing them speak in Farsi. Apple says they're just following company and U.S. policy.
Very hurtful, very embarrassing. I actually walked out in tears.
Sahar Sabet is a U.S. citizen. Like most 19-year-olds, the UGA student is never far from her iPhone. So she was surprised Thursday when an employee at the Apple store inside North Point Mall refused to sell an iPad to her and her uncle after overhearing them speaking Farsi.
I'm from Iran, he said. I just can't sell this to you. Our countries have bad relations.
I would say if you're trying to buy an iPhone, don't tell them anything about Iran.
Zach Jafarzadeh had a similar experience at the Apple store in Perimeter Mall. He was helping a friend buy an iPhone. That friend was from Iran, living and studying here on a visa.
We never talked about him going back to Iran or something like that. I mean, he was just speaking.
We went with Sabet to the North Point Apple store Monday. We took this iPhone video of the same employee repeating the policy. He reiterated it always will be not to sell to anyone from Iran. A manager showed us Apple's policy. It says the exportation, sale, or supply from the U.S. to Iran of any Apple goods is strictly prohibited without authorization by the U.S. government. The manager also tells me they have to rely on customers to be honest.
Discrimination, racially profiled. He didn't have any business asking me what country I was from.
Jafarzadeh, who is from Virginia, says no one asked him where the phone was going. The employee only questioned his ethnicity.
I feel like this is a bit of racial profiling. Against Iranians, and I'm appalled.
Worse and worse and worse.
We begin with allegations of racism at a Raleigh bar taken to the next level. The alleged victim files a criminal summons against the bar's general manager. Steve Dorsey's live on Glenwood Avenue outside the downtown sports bar and grill with more. Steve?
Tisha, in this court document, 21-year-old Jonathan Wall accuses Todd Crisco of simple assault and ethnic intimidation after Wall says he was thrown out because he's black. New developments in a case of alleged discrimination. This criminal summons was served to 47-year-old Todd Crisco, the general manager of the downtown sports bar and grill. In it, Jonathan Wall says Crisco grabbed his wrists and pushed him to the ground. Wall also claims Crisco assaulted him because of his color. It all stems from a night out at the bar June 17th. In a press conference last week, Wall said he and some friends made it into the bar, but were racially profiled, and he was violently thrown out.
I'm left to ask, what makes me so undesirable as a patron of any establishment in Raleigh?
The bar denies any wrongdoing. Its management says it's a private club, and Wall wasn't a member. Staffers at the bar referred our questions to Crisco's attorney. He says the business has denied they have roughed up or mistreated Mr. Wall. Nevertheless, Wall expressed his anger in an email that quickly went viral shortly after the alleged incident. Now, Wall plans to participate in a protest in response to his allegations this Saturday in Raleigh. Yeah, and when reached by phone, Wall referred all questions to his attorney. So far, we have not heard back. And just to be clear, Wall filed the complaint, not police, so Crisco was not arrested, though we are expected to see him in court July 23rd. Live in Raleigh, Steve Dorsey, ABC 11 Eyewitness News.
Worse and worse and worse.
A student from Africa, Raul has been in Kiev for 2 years. Today, he is walking in the fan zone. But he says that normally he is afraid to walk around the city. During the past 3 months, he has twice been beaten by skinheads.
The first time was 3 people against me. Second time, I was with 2 friends. We was 3 against like 25 people. We just run away.
Raul has not reported the incidents to the police. He says that it does not help. Human rights activists state that racism is on the rise in Ukraine, and the number of crimes against foreigners is also growing.
During the 3 years of 2009, 2010 and 2011, there were 126 reported attacks on foreigners, predominantly on the grounds of racial or ethnic hatred.
During the last year, 48 foreigners have suffered from attacks. Victims of racial violence also include Gypsies, Crimean Tatars and Jews.
As a rule, those who suffer from such attacks tend not to report them, unless it has been extremely serious and put their life in danger. This is especially true of foreign students from Africa and Asia.
According to human rights activists, the most common form of intolerance is verbal abuse. A friend of Raul, Sorel, says that he has often heard derogatory remarks at his expense. He believes this is because Ukraine is still a rather closed country, where many people are not accustomed to foreigners. In such a scenario, ignorance can run high.
Some woman, she come ask me, why are you washing only your hand and don't wash this place? She told me that if you wash this place, like this place, maybe you'll be white like us.
A student from Vietnam, Nguyen Van Tan, has also received many unpleasant comments just because he looks different. He says he has already learned to ignore it, recognizing that many Ukrainians have yet to embrace tolerance.
There was a famous football player, Lilian Thurman. He wrote the book, Racism, It Is Evil. I remember his words, that there are no such people as dark-skinned and light-skinned, yellow or red, just a man. We're all people, and we should all be united.
NTD News, Kiev, Ukraine.
England's footballers following last night's defeat in the European Championships. The messages appeared on the social networking site Twitter last night after England lost on penalties to Italy. We're live to Ashish Joshi at Luton Airport, where the England players are arriving, indeed have just landed within the past few minutes. Ashish, what do we know about these tweets?
Well, I just spoke to the Metropolitan Police and they say the investigation is in its very early stages. In other words, they haven't really got very much to add to what they were saying this morning. Well, what they said then was that a member of the public alerted them to these tweets reportedly sent by somebody who was based in London. That's why it's a Metropolitan Police investigation. Somebody who had racially abused those 2 England penalty takers, the 2 black players in the England team who took penalties last night, Ashley Cole and Ashley Young. The nature of the tweets themselves, the police say they were alerted by somebody else who had asked this tweeter to take them down, to stop sending out these racist tweets. And then this man, the tweeter, apparently said, don't worry, I won't be investigated by the police, they won't be knocking on my door. And apparently a lot of people were tweeting back to him saying, look, this is offensive, this is racist, don't do this anymore. I'm presuming it's a man. Of course, we don't know whether it's a man or a woman, but the tweeter carried on tweeting, and the Metropolitan Police were alerted last night, and they have launched an investigation, contrary to what this person thought might or might not happen. Remember Liam Stacey earlier this year when he was sending out really nasty messages on his Twitter account about Fabrice Muamba. He was jailed for what he said. So the police take this very, very seriously. And if an offence has been reported to them by a member of the public, they have to act on it. So they are investigating it. And they say they do think that this Twitter account is based in London and it's in its early stages. So far, no arrests have been made.
Switching gears now to a subject that also inspires passion around the world. The finals are set at Euro 2012. That's Europe's big national team soccer tournament. It's being held in Ukraine and Poland this year. Italy got into the final thanks to 2 goals from the striker Mario Balotelli. But it was not just Balotelli's brilliant play that was the subject of headlines. Balotelli is black, and before the tournament began, he threatened not to play if he was racially abused by fans, which he was. And he was not the only player or participant to raise the issue of the hostile racial climate at one of Europe's biggest sporting events. One of England's former captains warned black fans to stay home or risk, quote, coming back in a coffin. And Dutch soccer legend Ruud Gullit spoke out after his team was racially abused during training. Here he is talking about that.
It is sad that we have to talk about this, because football is all about joy. It's also, I think, a possibility also for the 2 countries who are hosting it to put themselves on the map. So we don't need this. And it's good that we talk about it. It's sad that we talk about it.
So let's talk about it some more. We've called Simon Hayden. He's the international sports editor for the Associated Press, and he's with us from Warsaw, Poland. Simon, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Michelle.
Now, you've been in Poland since the start of the tournament. So far, Germany, Croatia, Russia, and Spain have all been fined for racist actions by their fans. Could you just tell us just a little bit about those incidents?
Yeah, what happened there? We have to emphasise that this is a very small minority of fans who are really spoiling it for their countries. What would happen generally is that a player like Mario Balotelli, who is of African-Italian descent, would be the subject of fairly horrible monkey chants. And also there were cases of bananas being thrown onto the pitch in his direction. These are all rather nasty. They were carried out by a small group, and the soccer's organising body has been very keen to slap down on these people very quickly. So it's the soccer authorities of each country that have been hit with some fairly hefty fines.
What are soccer's governing bodies doing to stop this? I mean, we remember that Balotelli said that if he were abused, he was going to walk off the field, and then and then the federation said, "Well, we'll fine you if you do that. That's going to be, considered a serious, offense on your part." Do you get the sense that the governing authorities are in fact taking this seriously?
Well, from a sporting point of view, thank goodness he didn't walk off the field, because he's turned out to be the star of the whole tournament. The players from ethnic minorities are in a terrible position. They take deep offence at being racially abused and would like to do something about it, and yet they're told if they do something about it, then they're going to get into trouble. So they're pretty well stuck between a rock and a hard place. I think they're eventually persuaded not to take any action by their coaches and their colleagues. And essentially what they have to do is they have to tough it out. It's unpleasant, and no one should have to be subject to such abuse, but they are. It happens. It's not just Poland and Ukraine. This does happen, I'm afraid, in most countries in Europe.
Oh, I was going to ask about that. I mean, people are saying, well, this is an Eastern European issue, but I mean, Balotelli's been heckled even by fans in Italy, hasn't he? And he's on the Italian national soccer team. So overall, though, I wanted to ask, just do you feel that this kind of behavior has put a cloud over the atmosphere there? Has it been a regular part of the experience for most of the fans and players over the course of the tournament, or do you see it kind of isolated but still disturbing?
I would say your last option there, isolated but disturbing, is very accurate. It is quite rare. What we do have to say is that when the big soccer teams pack up and go away, we'll be left with domestic football, where racism is much more endemic and much more vicious. There are large groups of neo-Nazis who link themselves up with Polish and Ukrainian teams, and more or less parasites on the backs of these clubs who might be trying to behave themselves. But it's a problem that has lessened massively over the last couple of decades in Western Europe, but in Eastern Europe, where life is developing very quickly at the moment in the last 20 years, it's a problem that's not going away as quickly as they'd like it to.
Okay, before we let you go, how was the tournament overall? How has it been overall? I mean, as we mentioned, that Balotelli has been just absolutely lethal on the field. Overall, great. Have you been having a good experience? Good play overall?
Soccer has been the soccer's been fantastic. It really is. This is the top tournament, even better than the World Cup. So for football fans, we love it. Socially, and the Poles have been wonderful hosts, and most people have had a great time. So the small incidents of racism, we've got to get rid of them. But it's just a question of how we do it.
Simon Hayden is the international sports editor for the Associated Press, and he joined us from Warsaw, Poland. Simon, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Michelle.
Worse and worse and worse. For one Georgia incumbent sheriff in a race to keep his job, the skeleton in his closet adage hits close to home. After all, it's a piece of his Halloween party wardrobe he wore years ago that has the local media buzzing and his opponent gaining. Here's WSB with the story.
This is Sheriff Roger Garrison. Like most people, have never seen him. This photo out of costume shows how long ago it was. Garrison says he and a friend were imitating this popular scene from the movie Blazing Saddles, long before he took office as Cherokee County's sheriff.
Garrison has been the sheriff in Cherokee County for 20 years. He says the costume was from when he was 21 or 22 years old, and wearing it was a youthful and dumb mistake he regrets. He told the Cherokee Tribune, "This is by no means a reflection upon my career or personal beliefs. It was a simple, childish Halloween costume party. Nothing more, nothing less." Garrison is chalking the picture's release up to politics and his primary fight. He accused his opponent of mudding the race, and he threw some dirt of his own. Garrison is seeking a 6th term in office in primary elections next month. And on Friday, he accused his opponent, David Waters, of sending the KKK photos to the media in Atlanta. He described the move as a deeply appalling political attack, adding that Waters was in no position to make a moral judgment, considering he had been married 5 times, the Cherokee Tribune reported. According to WSB, the photos that were released to the media did not come from Waters' campaign. WSB is not revealing that person's identity. Waters says he did see the pictures a year ago, but did nothing with them at the time. For Newsy, I'm Jasmine Bailey. Multiple sources, The Real Story.
I am not prejudiced.
The Georgia Department of Transportation has denied the Ku Klux Klan's application to join the state's Adopt a Highway program. Officials say the program is aimed at organizations in good standing, but the Associated Press is predicting the denial could spark a legal challenge, and they're not the only ones.
The group says it will contact the ACLU.
Appears headed for a legal battle. A longtime First Amendment attorney in Atlanta told me today it's a battle the state will lose, just as Missouri did a few years ago.
In a statement, the Transportation Department explains signs with KKK group names could be a, quote, definite distraction to motorists, alluding to the Klan's violent and racist past. The Southern Poverty Law Center and Anti-Defamation League still classify the group as a hate group. State Representative Tyrone Brooks had campaigned for the state to reject the application and called it, quote, the only right decision. He told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Klan killed people in this state. For the state to sanction them as a civic-minded group would be unacceptable and dangerous. A federal appeals court had ruled against a past effort in Missouri to ban the KKK from the program, saying membership can't be denied because of a group's political beliefs. That precedent has some observers predicting a legal challenge could favor the Klan. And on MSNBC, fill-in host Michael Eric Dyson says he agrees with that line of reasoning.
Let the KKK adopt every highway from Georgia to Canada, but then they should rebuild all the churches they've destroyed, they should rebuild all the houses they've destroyed, and maybe they can even rebuild all the lives that they've ruined.
A Klansman, whose formal title is the Exalted Cyclops of the Union County Klan, told Reuters the group would consider legal action. For Newsy, I'm Lauren Zima. Multiple sources, The Real Story.
Welcome back to The Ed Show. A Ku Klux Klan group in Georgia is trying to clean up their image by cleaning up roads. And believe it or not, I say let them go for it. The International Keystone Knights of the KKK filed an application last month to join Georgia's Adopt a Highway program. They want to adopt a 1-mile stretch of Highway 515 in North Georgia. The program enlists volunteers from groups to pick up trash along the road. Each group that participates gets a sign on the road with their name on it. The Klan says this isn't for publicity, they just want to keep the road clean. A Change.org petition to stop the plan has already received over 16,000 signatures. Earlier today, the Georgia Department of Transportation denied the KKK's request. The group is now threatening to sue Georgia, and they could be in for a long legal fight. A similar battle took place in Missouri. The state tried to stop the KKK from adopting a road by taking them to court. Missouri eventually lost, and the signs were put up. The courts ruled the First Amendment prevented the state from denying the application because it disagreed with the Klan's viewpoint. In that case, the Klan didn't actually pick up any trash and the signs were taken down. But you know what? I agree with the courts. I believe in free speech. I believe in the Constitution. And as they say at the beginning of The Godfather, I believe in America. Let the KKK adopt every highway from Georgia to Canada. It's a great starting point if they are trying to clean up their image. But then they should rebuild all the churches they've destroyed. They should rebuild all the houses they've destroyed. And maybe they can even rebuild all the lives that they've ruined. Tonight in our survey, I ask you, do you believe Republicans are deliberately trying to sabotage President Obama? 99% say yes, 1% say no. Coming up, controversy erupts after actress Gwyneth Paltrow tweets the N-word. Is it ever okay for a white person to use the N-word? Russell Simmons will weigh in. Stay tuned.
Worse and worse and worse. Black mobs attacking white people. That is the headline of a newspaper that several homeowners received in the Northland.
The publication is part of a white supremacist organization. As Lisa Benson reports, the paper is the group's attempt to recruit more members.
On their website, the Council of Conservative Citizens claims to be the only nationwide activist group that sticks up for white people. Earlier this week, several Northland homeowners found the group's publication, The Citizens Informer, on their front stoop.
They typically denigrate people of color in explicit and awful terms. And it's not as bad as some Klan tabloids, but it's pretty much the same kinds of material.
Leonard Zeskind is a human rights expert and the author of Blood and Politics, a book about the white nationalist movement. He's familiar with the Citizens Informer, and he knew that the organization, which is based out of St. Louis, would be targeting people in the Northland.
They're trying to find new members by mass circulating the newspaper, and they're trying to just stoke up racism.
Several homeowners in the Northland told us they did receive the unsolicited publication and were offended that it was dropped off at their home. They did not want to talk about it on camera. Lisa Benson, 41 Action News.
An insert in the group's publication looked like a most wanted ad. They made it look like it was published by the KC Crime Stoppers. The group used the phone number, text number, and email address for the tips hotline. Crime Stoppers says that they have nothing to do with it, and the information was used without their permission.
Worse and worse and worse.
And welcome back to Hannity. It appears the left-wing entertainer Cher will never learn her lesson. Now, just weeks after being heavily criticized for her tweets about Governor Romney and his supporters, she went on a liberal radio show, one of the few out there, and reiterated her positions. First, listen to the biased question that she was asked, and then the response.
Why do you think there's so much hatred? What do you think is doing it? Is it because he's black? I mean, what's your conclusion, or what have you thought?
I definitely think there's a component of racism in it, you know. And I also think that I think that the Republicans just thought that they were going to be able to be in office forever. And I think that not only were they not, but they got thrown out, and they got thrown out by a black man. And I think that is a real that's the stumbling block that they won't be able to get over.
So
and I've said this and gotten into so much trouble, but I mean, you look at the function, like all of the, you know, the stump speeches, and where are the people? Where are the real people? Where are the Latinos? Where are the Asians? Where are the black people? You know, it's like 50 Shades of White. People in the government calling him tar baby. What are you led to believe? I mean, what are you led to believe? I've never seen such disrespect for a president. There has never been such disrespect for a president since, you know, back in the day where people were, you know, crazy. I mean, I'm talking about in Jeffersonian people. I mean, when they were running for office, things were as crazy as they are now.
And joining me with reaction, the author of the bestseller Blacklash, Deneen Borelli, Fox News contributor Tamara Holder. Now, the criticism against Obama has nothing to do with the fact that we have $5 trillion in new debt, no jobs, 47 million Americans in poverty on food stamps, 15 million more than when he took office. It's because he's black. Do you believe that?
Are you asking me to defend Cher?
I just asked you if you believe that.
Well, look, she's an entertainer. She's like 100 years old. She runs across the stage in like
You're
those...
the liberal. Do you believe that? That's a simple question.
There's definitely, and there has been from the very beginning, definitely an element of racism.
So America that elected the first African-American president is now racist because they think he's fat.
Sean, listen, first of all, I have a headache, and I'm not in the mood for you to put me in my place. Yes, I have a headache, and I don't want you to anger me so soon in this interview. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think that you should really think about how this woman, who, like I said, runs across the stage in pantyhose at 68, 9, 70 years old, is affecting politics.
We have the left who always says they're either entertainers or they're comedians. The bottom line is this. President Obama is going down. He will be defeated. His policies are deplorable. You mentioned unemployment, the stimulus, the spending, the debt. And we have these individuals who want to play the race card because they don't want to talk about the facts and figures that are on the table, the numbers that are before us. You mentioned people on food stamps. It's on and on. And so they're going to play the race card. It's a losing game, and it's their last-ditch effort because they have nothing else to say.
No, well, maybe Cher needs to read the paper a little bit more and not just talk about race, because there are other issues that the Republicans support that Democrats like myself don't, like sending all of the jobs overseas that actually Mitt Romney, your favorite guy who think is going to win the presidency, is, he's such a pro at that. That's what he did. Banked for 15 years to send jobs overseas.
Obama hasn't created a single job in his life. Look at Staples, and that is a Bain Capital success. Tell me where Obama has created one job. We have 1 million fewer Americans working, and then you have celebrities going out there. By the way, we're donating millions of dollars. Those rich celebrities,
private money,
and they're claiming
rich
that anybody that
you should like that.
Can I finish my statement?
No.
Anybody that disagrees with the president is a racist.
That's right, and this is what we're up against from now until we get to the election in November. Thank goodness for the Tea Party movement, for example. We talk about the policies that are affecting our country. It's not about race. It's about Obama's deplorable leadership in this country.
What about his big donor, Bill Maher, that actually went out and said, well, Republicans don't care about dead Mexicans?
Okay, Sean. So it's okay for conservatives who've made money, Bain, whatever kind of money they make as corporate leaders in this world, to donate money to the Republican Party.
What are we talking about?
Why is it?
I asked you about Bill Maher.
Wait, but what's wrong with an entertainer who's made a name for himself, who gets paid by HBO, Cher who sold millions of records, who's made a ton of money to donate money?
I'll answer the question, because the answer is that this is a president that has talked and lectured the country about tone and civility, and he took $1 million from a guy that called Sarah Palin the C word and the B word and claims Republicans don't care about dead Mexicans.
And doesn't have any called free speech in America. And
but
you know
the president
what? If you don't
doesn't have to take $1 million from him.
Well, what do you want him to do?
He is a washed-up, so-called comedian. He's taken on conservative women and teenagers. I mean, how is that funny?
Wait, how is he washed up? He just re-signed a new contract last year with HBO.
But anyway, we're going to hear more and more about the race card as we get closer to the election.
He's not washed up.
Good to see you all.
What do you mean we're lucky to be white?
It's not luck, it's privilege.
We're privileged that people see us, not a color.
Privilege that we don't get stared at when we walk into the room.
Privilege that we don't get followed by security when we go shopping.
Or pulled over when we're in the wrong neighborhood.
We're privileged because society was set up for us, and our silence keeps it in place.
We're privileged, and that's unfair.
Welcome back. So a new campaign ad a new ad campaign actually called Unfair aims to achieve racial justice by raising awareness of white privilege. The project is sponsored by University of Minnesota Duluth and several lefty groups as well, claiming in billboards and lectures that, quote, society was set up for us, whites, which is unfair. You know, I hope there's an online video that explains it all while embarrassing everyone involved.
What do you mean we're lucky to be white?
It's not luck, it's privilege.
We're privileged that people see us, not a color.
Privilege that we don't get stared at when we walk into the room.
Privilege that we don't get followed by security when we go shopping.
Or pulled over when we're in the wrong neighborhood.
We're privileged because society was set up for us, and our silence keeps it in place.
We're privileged, and that's unfair.
And that's unfair. Does this university have a law school? I hear Obama's team may be looking for a new attorney general, and this sounds like a perfect hunting ground for them. Now, I'm not so much annoyed by the message than the cliched buffoonery that involves writing on your face. You think scribbling dopey phrases on your forehead makes you appear thoughtful? When an idiot writes no hate on his cheek, it just makes the idiot easier to spot. Anyway, I guess we should be pleased they spelled the words right, given this is the nonsense universities involve themselves in these days. I suppose raising awareness about stuff we already hear about every day absolves them from having to get bogged down in that whole education thing. I just wish they were brave enough to use permanent markers. Then it would be everybody's privileges, white, blacks, you name it, to laugh at these bozos wherever they go.
Do we have to write backwards?
What?
Yeah, you have to write backwards.
Yeah.
You have to write about
that.
So, wow, so you actually had to write it backwards. They had to really give it some thought.
No, you don't. What are you talking about?
You have to write on camera.
It's not in a mirror. Someone else just wrote.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Now, their face is like a piece of paper.
All right, got it.
I can't believe
whatever.
it.
Obviously, we can't do it.
Got a statement from the University of Minnesota saying that we fully support the foundations and principles of this campaign. We feel the PSA is divisive and we do not agree with the creative strategy. They've expressed displeasure with the partnership, blah, 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 blah. They wimped out. Kimberly.
Isn't that racist?
Yes.
White people. And what are you going to do? Ask someone to divide themselves up like a mathematical equation? What percentage are you this? Which percentage of you should have white shame? This is divisive in and of itself. That's why I just don't think it's race baiting. It's just hateful. Doesn't move the ball forward at all in terms of understanding.
Bob, even if the heart is in the right place, it's pretty silly.
Well, first of all, I've been to Duluth many times, and by the way, they've suffered some terrible floods up there, but it is a unbelievably white majority city, very few minorities. There is, I think, I'm not sure I would use those exact ads, but I think the message is the right one. And I also think it is true that if you're white in America, you have advantages.
If you're black in America, you also have advantages.
Well, no,
if you're an American, you have advantages.
And if you're at a university and you happen to be not white, then you have advantages.
Yeah.
All the advantages, right?
I think
all these people have light
tremendous
eyes.
advantages that you end up having. You can become president of the United States. That's pretty cool.
You're hitting exactly the point, Greg. It's all about fair shot, equal opportunity to succeed. Everyone doesn't have to have the same amount of success. Everyone has to have the same opportunities to succeed, and we have that, Bob. We have a black president.
You think a kid born in South Bronx last night has the same chance as a white kid born in Westchester?
Absolutely has the same opportunity to succeed.
That is absolutely ridiculous.
I will point
I'm glad
one
you
thing
stopped saying crack baby.
I will point one thing out. America is 72% white. For them to put in that ad that whites have the privilege of walking into a room and not being looked at different, I don't really get that. If I walk into if I go to the corner of Market and Broad in Newark, I'm going to get looked at differently. I'll guarantee I get looked at differently.
I look at you differently every day when I see you.
Dan and Kimberly walk into anywhere, they get looked at differently.
Yeah, that's it. But you notice this is all people with light eyes with recessive alleles?
Really?
Did you know that? But every single one has, look, blue or light green.
That's because they're almost all Norwegian.
Yeah, but they were it sounds like it's a little bit Aryan-esque.
The other thing is that actually, one of the reasons they're privileged to be able to write that kind of stuff on their face is because their ancestors were smart enough to come to America to find themselves a way forward, and they decided to live in Duluth, Minnesota.
Well,
if
they decided to move to the Iron Range, I'm not sure that's great.
Everybody on this show right now.
Does anybody really believe that there is an equal chance if you're black than you're white in this country?
I think in some ways there are advantages.
Oh boy.
And there are disadvantages. But I want to know, how does this help these kids get jobs? This is a university. You're walking around with stuff on your face.
It's not about the university. It's the whole town. The university is only one small part of this coalition.
But the university is devoting time to that, which should be more devoted to, say, education, right?
Say.
What?
We got to go.
Say.
You said they should be devoted to more things like say education, and I just said say, which could maybe be a banned phrase later on.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right.
I think you used the banned phrase already once today.
I've had it with her.
When you attack one black man, you are attacking all black men. And this type of black thinking will cause all black people to stick together.
Seed planting victim of racism.
Save a world that is destined to die. is destined to die.
When you attack one black man, you are attacking all black men. And this type of black thinking will cause all black people to stick together.
Worse and worse and worse.
Let's get to Tom Klein. He's an attorney for victim number 5, who really might not have been a victim at all if somebody at Penn State had acted sooner. Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for talking with us. What's your reaction to these emails?
My reaction is shock. These emails, which have been discussed that they existed, to see the content of them today is shocking. It is unquestionable that had these men not engaged in a concerted, conscious, collaborative effort not to report this to authorities, that the young man who I represent would not have been assaulted in the showers some 6 months later. It is appalling, Soledad.
Gary Schultz and Tim Curley, as you well know, they're already facing charges in connection with failing to report the abuse, lying to authorities. How do you see these emails and whatever legal action will follow?
Well, these emails, of course, are irrelevant to that particular action. They're also relevant to the investigation by former FBI Director Louis Freeh, and they're relevant to the civil litigation. Here we see what appears to be on the face reckless conduct. A university president who is making a conscious, deliberative effort and approving the failure to report a known sexual predator. That conduct is likely part of the reason why Mr. Spanier was dismissed.
You hear a lot of times in those emails the word humane approach. What do you make of that?
Well, there was quite to the contrary. The humane thing to do would have been to report Mr. Sandusky to the DPW, to report him to authorities. Instead, there was this conscious decision made that they were just going to go at it simply by having Mr. Curley talk to Sandusky. My word, that just is not right. The fact of the matter is that they had a plan in place, as Susan Candiotti reports, to do a number of things which didn't carry the ball all the way, to use their term, but the fact of the matter is that they were going to report it to DPW. They made a decision to retrench and retreat on that very policy. And the fact of the matter is that while Mr. Paterno doesn't use email, so he says, the fact of the matter is Curley changed the plan according to the content of these emails right after he spoke with Joe Paterno. That, of course, is a critical piece of information and something that none of us knew until the content of these emails was revealed tonight.
So what do you think should be the legal liability of these men, especially maybe the president?
Penn State is responsible for their conduct. We are assessing their conduct. I have said that while Penn State has reached out to me and to other victims and their attorneys, the fact of the matter is that we can't begin to talk to Penn State until we have full and complete disclosure. And this, I would believe, is the tip of the iceberg.
As you know, you heard the statement a moment ago from Susan. Part of the statement said, good people try to do their best to make the right decisions, as their excuse for maybe why they did not move forward with these allegations and these emails. What do you think of that?
They made a conscious decision to make the wrong decision. They knew, and they even discussed in the content of these emails, as I've seen them tonight, that they would face the consequences later on. They would deal with the non-reporting later on, should it come up and should it come back to them. Well, it sure has come back to them, and they are now facing both criminal and civil proceedings as a result of it. There could not be poorer choices that were made and more reckless conduct by people charged with the running of a university, the president, the athletic director, and the vice president. These emails, the content of which is now being revealed, demonstrates that very clearly and very poignantly. They made a collaborative, collective decision to do what they did. They talked about it in these emails, and they made a decision to retreat from the poor plan that they had developed, and they went to simply talking to the subject, Mr. Sandusky. Interestingly, these emails, the content of them, it's all in code. They talk about the subject. They talk about the, quote, other organization. They talk about these things as though they were conspiring and collaborating to do something
worse and worse and worse.
A Frenchman won the Academy Award for Best Actor this year. Jean Dujardin took home the trophy for his leading role in The Artist. But in France, Dujardin was beat out for the country's top award by the new acting sensation Omar Sy. Sy is the son of African immigrants. His movie The Intouchables was a hit across Europe and is now playing in theaters here. Eleanor Beardsley reports from Paris.
Omar Sy. 34-year-old Omar Sy took the stage to receive France's most prestigious acting award, the César, in February in a televised ceremony in Paris.
Je suis désolé. Moi, je parlais de mes parents et de mes enfants.
Sy was chosen for his electric performance in the mega-hit comedy Intouchable, based on a true story. Intouchable, The Untouchables in English, is a feel-good buddy comedy. It's about a white aristocrat quadriplegic who hires an unemployed black kid from the projects as his personal aide. Despite the difference in age, race, and background, Philippe, the millionaire, played by renowned actor François Cluzet, and Driss, who is played by Sy, form a deep bond. The film also confronts racism, poverty, and infirmity, while Sy illuminates the screen with his rapid-fire banter and infectious laugh. In an interview with NPR, Sy says he thinks the film struck a chord.
Because it's about two different Frances meeting each other, liking each other, and forming a powerful relationship. That's the problem in France today. There are worlds living side by side, yet completely apart. People don't know or understand their neighbor. That's why people are scared.
Like the character he plays, Sy hails from a France far from the glittering boulevards of Paris. The fourth of 8 children, he grew up in one of the gritty, heavily immigrant suburbs known as banlieue that ring the French capital. Sy's Senegalese father worked in a factory. His Mauritanian mother was a cleaning woman. Sy is an idol to young kids growing up in the banlieue, like this group of boys whose parents immigrated from Arab countries and Africa.
I love you, Omar Sy. I love you. Because he's very, very good actor. And
he's dramatic and natural, they say, and he represents us. We're proud and he gives us hope. If he can make it, we can too. Immigration has loomed large on the French political landscape lately. Even many second-generation immigrants say they felt stigmatized by the toxic, anti-foreigner, anti-Muslim rhetoric of the recent French presidential race. C is also a Muslim. He says his background has been an asset.
Parce que moi je me sens pas du tout immigré, moi je suis complètement français. Mais
I feel completely French, but it's true that as a son of immigrants, I struggled with my identity, especially in my teenage years, but I've been able to take aspects of both French and African culture, and I'm all the richer for it.
Service après-vente, bonjour.
Oui, bonjour, monsieur. Jean-Marie Le Pen ne peut plus.
C got his start several years ago doing impersonations on a radio comedy show, then followed a wildly popular TV comedy skit that still airs. But it was The Untouchables that launched C into real stardom. It became France's second-grossing film of all time. A full one-third of the French population has seen the film. Intouchable also swept Europe, spending 9 weeks as the #1 film in Germany. But some American critics have had harsh words for it, saying The Untouchables deals in cliches and smacks of Uncle Tom racism. C disagrees.
Ils n'ont pas compris le film, je pense.
They saw it through an American lens. You can't compare France and America, it's not the same. This is a French story, and the point is my character could have been Arab, Chinese, or even white. It's his housing project culture that defines him. A kid from the project is marked by the project, not his color.
C has since left the projects, though he says he will always carry them within. Those who know him say he goes back often and doesn't forget anyone. As he leaves the TV studios, C seems to have a kind word and a warm smile for everyone, especially the security guards and the cleaning woman. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Paris.
Context of White Supremacy. Justice Gus T Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date is Saturday, June 30th, 2012. So I have been told. Hope this will be a constructive investment of your Saturday evening. If you are not getting useful information, is not sounding constructive, please tune out. Find something more useful to do with your time, energy, and currency. We got too many problems as black people worldwide, non-white people worldwide, to be wasting time. We'll be back tomorrow. I am really glad we're able to do the broadcast tomorrow. I know a lot of people have been talking on the C.O.W.S Facebook group and in other spots about their own experiences with sexual abuse. In fact, when we did the broadcast last weekend with Cisco Street Love talking about his book yesterday, Shame, about the rampant pedophilia and child molestation, child sexual molestation, and one of the callers, she mentioned the article in the New York Times Magazine about the prep school predators at Horace Mann in New York, where a lot of the teachers were sexually assaulting, abusing students at this prep school in New York. A big story just came out a couple weeks ago. You can read it online. It's engrossing. I would encourage listeners to check it out. There's a follow-up as well where they talk to one of the teachers. He's still alive. He's retired, but he admits to sexually assaulting, I think, 3-4 students. He talks about it in detail. He is non-white, non-black. The professor that they do a follow-up interview with, but really interesting story. Anyway, they included links to different websites where some of the victims, now that they're older, where they have set up different web spots to talk about child sexual abuse and how to recuperate from that trauma. And I was just following some of the links, and I found this website, blacksurvivors.org. The website again is blacksurvivors.org. It is Black Sexual Abuse Survivors. It is all dedicated to black people, even if you're an adult and it happened years ago. It has resources, information, suggestions, tips on things you can do to prevent your child from being a victim of sexual abuse. Fantastic resource. I posted it in the C.O.W.S group earlier this week, and the founder, Sylvia Coleman. She'll be with us tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I know that a lot of victims have communicated to me and shared on the program that they have experienced some form of sexual abuse, when they know other black people that they care about who have suffered some form of sexual abuse. Ms. Coleman, she set her site up to be a resource for black people. She says she is looking forward. She has written a book on her experience to talking about how she has been recuperating from what happened to her, and answering questions. So if you want to dial in, you can be anonymous. You don't have to, identify yourself. It's pretty much how we roll anyway. Definitely want to give folks the opportunity to call in. If you would feel more comfortable emailing questions, you can certainly email them to me and I will ask. My email address is untiljustice@gmail.com. Once again, it is untiljustice@gmail.com. If you want to email questions, Facebook is a little, I guess you could do it on Facebook, but it's a little more difficult for me to keep up with Facebook. The best way, the optimal way, if you have questions you would like her to address, shoot me an email, untiljustice@gmail.com. Definitely looking forward to the broadcast, and I hope we can have folks who are willing and able to dial in to ask to get some of her insight on the best way to handle and or avoid being sexually molested in the first place, and then if you have unfortunately been victimized in that way, to get some tips on how best to recuperate from that. Tomorrow evening, Sunday, July 1st, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and the website again is blacksurvivors.org. All right, moving forward. Couple things I will get to before we hit the phone lines. I see hands already. I will have very little to say. I'll share my couple quick tidbits, and then we'll be off and running. I'll give out the number if folks want to dial in, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you have questions. If you're on the TalkShoe line, it is *8. All right, number one, being on the plantation, very unpleasant. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Earlier this week, I was enjoying having a few days off, getting some reading done, got another YouTube video made, my Mr. Fuller's commentary on Zapsters, got it posted earlier this week. Really enjoyed that segment and was glad I had the time to crank another video out. At any rate, as I've said consistently, if you like the program, so what? If you don't like the program, so what? It's really all about solving problems, replacing white supremacy with justice. However, I was cranking along this week and I got a reminder from one of our previous guests. She'd been on the program. It was two non-white parents. They were on the program in October of 2011. And the importance of keeping in mind we are in a global system of white supremacy. The problems that happen here, whether we're talking about Detroit with Aiyana Jones, whether we're talking about down in Florida with Trayvon Martin, whether we're talking about California, Oscar Grant, Lavelle Mixon, whatever the case may be, don't think this is just happening here. This is a global issue. White people around the world are unified around the concept of terrorizing and abusing non-white people forever. The guests that we had on in October, they reside in the area of the world known as Switzerland. I will just read the email. If you didn't hear that program, you can check it in the archives. It's titled Parents Slam Swiss School for Racist Game. October 2011, Parents Slam Swiss School for Racist Game. The email. This is Aaliyah and Heidi writing you from Switzerland. We hope you are doing fine and sure do hope all is well with the program. We wanted to inform you on how far our case has gone, and so far, after your program, the Minister of Education somehow felt quite embarrassed after hearing us on your program. Also, when you type in Switzerland on Google, your article pops up, Parents Slam Swiss School for Racist Game. We would like to thank you again for giving us this opportunity for voicing our encounter with racism here in Switzerland. So far, we have lost our bakery due to our fight. But it's rewarding because since the Minister of Education has made her way all the way from Bern, which is the capital of Switzerland, to where we are in Valais, to meet the president of the school board. We received a phone call from them literally begging us to come into the Voice and talk, which I refused to do. Her secretary said a few staff's jobs are at stake here. So far, the principal of our son's school, somehow they told us, took an early retirement, which we know he was fired, but to make it look good, they said he's retiring early. An association called Licorice has taken up the case, and thank God for a rather dirty letter the school principal sent us, which was written by an old citizen stating, and this is all in quotes, we already had to change the name of the chocolate called Nigger's Head to Chocolate Head, and now must we change the name of the game. The game she's referencing is Who's Afraid of the Black Man. You'll hear more detail about it if you listen to that program in the archives. The name of the game, again, Who's Afraid of the Black Man? So all that is in quotes. If they are not happy, please get out of our country, end quote. This is all from the same racist white woman. Mind you, this was sent by the school principal to us. How disrespectful and racist of him, but our fight is not yet over. Please, okay. Anyway, we'll end there. Just as I said, do as much as you can. I definitely am in a weak position, still confused myself about racism, white supremacy, and the best way to go to solve this problem. But you never know. Just whatever effort you can make to speak truthfully about racism, white supremacy, and to expose it, do what you can. You never know the impact it'll have. You never know, whom else will be reached by what it is that you're doing. Hopefully you'll influence some other non-white people. Make every effort that you can to combat racism, white supremacy. Also, racismdaily.com. That is how I found out about this incident. That was one of the reports he posted on his site, racismdaily.com, about what happened over in Switzerland. He actually spoke with them. I think they contacted him. They saw his post, and he passed their information along to me to get them on the program. So definitely just getting semblance of Voltron on the counter-racism team as well, racismdaily.com. Okay, next item. I hope people heard the segment. It was the last news clip, Intouchables, the film in France, where Omar Sy, I think I'm saying his name correctly, where he won, I guess, the equivalent of an Oscar for his role in this film. I saw this film just a couple weeks ago. It was mentioned, I think I got a forward from Pam, where they were talking about the most recent film. It got banned in France. I don't remember the name of it because I haven't seen it, but it's a recent film. The gorgeous Gabrielle Union is in it and some other folks, but I think it's something to the effect of black people, some kind of black comedy. Anyway, I don't remember the name, but anyway, it was banned in France. They didn't want to show this film, and people were talking about it and saying that they think the reason might have been because it showed black males, black females in loving relationships, not, hitting each other upside the head and name calling and all of that, and white people are definitely not interested in promoting that, so they banned this film in France. They did not ban The Intouchables. As you heard, it's become one of the highest grossing films in the history of French cinema. This film, man, I just remember, and I just saw it maybe 2 weeks ago. This film is incredibly racist. I wrote in the chat room, it is like a combination of Driving Miss Daisy with Morgan Freeman, Baps with Halle Berry, and Bring It Down the House with Queen Latifah. If you could kind of mush those films all together, you would have The Intouchables. And you just would need it subtitled. That's all you would need to do. And I just said, this is another illustration. White people are unified worldwide. It's like they have the same script. It doesn't matter if they're in Australia, New Zealand, Zimbabwe, South Africa, France, England, Florida. It doesn't matter. They are pretty much using the same script. Might be a few different wrinkles here, a few different wrinkles there, but the basic core of what they're doing is the same. And I mean, particularly with this film, and again, I'm not, trying to super encourage folks to go watch television. I don't think that's the most important use of our time, energy, currency under these conditions, but they can be an effective tool for demonstrating racism, white supremacy. If anyone, you're talking to, if they have some illusions about this being a global problem and them saying, oh, well, I don't think they have these race issues in France, or I don't think they have this everywhere else, point them to this film, particularly if the person, if they have some understanding, right, driving Miss Daisy, like, oh man, I don't want to see that foolishness and got us looking like, have them watch this film. Just to give you like some blow by, and again, I watched this a couple weeks ago. I didn't, watch it today to take notes. I'm just going off my memory. He's a chauffeur. You heard from the clip. The black male is a chauffeur for this paraplegic white man who cannot move, can't move his arms, can't move his legs. He has to wipe this white man's behind. He has to bathe him, feed him, get up in the middle of the night, take care of him. He's smoking weed with the white guy. Like, they have some points where he goes. That's why I said it reminded me of like Baps, right? Where he's cool, like, yeah, and the white guy enjoys this. They go out and smoke weed together and go get some food and have some laughs. He is playing the pimp role. That's why I say it reminded me of Bringing Down the House with Queen Latifah and Steve Martin, where she's helping him get his sex life together, right? Black male does the same thing in this film. The white guy, he's sending all these letters to this white woman. They're just pen pals writing all these romantic letters. And the black guy's like, forget that. You want to get with her, man. Send her a picture. Tell her you want to get her number. See if you all can hook up a date. And he, facilitates everything so that he can get it. Anyway, same role. I mean, if you've seen Casablanca, same role as Sam, long-running show. Black male supposed to be the supplier of sex for white men and white women. Cowbells are all over the place. The film starts and ends with this black male lusting after a quote-unquote homosexual white woman. He doesn't find out that this white woman is homosexual, anti-sexual until the very end of the film when she's with her white female partner. But he's been lusting after her the whole film, trying to get her to come take a bath with him and looking at her as if she has a nice derriere. I mean, anyway, people, if you have seen another foreign film, Case Depart, I do not speak French, so I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but the film, I think it just came out recently. I think it's translated Back to Square One. I think that might be the translation. I know Cynical African knows what I'm talking about. The female caller on Skype, I think they are aware. She actually sent it to me. And one of our other listeners, they said to watch it. I was able to get some time to watch that this week as well. Oof, I don't even know where to begin. That would take up like a whole book worth of commentary. At any rate, this film, The Untouchables, it starts the exact same way as Case Depart. I mean, again, as if white people, they have a basic foundational script that they just use all the time. Both films, the very beginning, they start out black male, he's criminalized, in jail, can't get a job, total lazy, shiftless, no good ruffian whose life is not worth a quarter. Comes home, he's of course staying with his black female mother who is struggling, trying to keep it together, working 20 jobs, taking care of all the children. This shiftless, no good black male comes home, the mom is wigging out. What are you going to do with yourself, you worthless, shiftless, no good wretch? Get out of my house. I'm sick of you being here. Look at you. You're a disgrace. Oh, I'm cursing. I tell you both, if you've seen these films, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like somebody looked at the script for one and said, we could just take exactly what they did and just use that for our film. Exact same depiction of worthless black life and black males and black females in conflict. I think both films, the black female strikes the black male. I know in Case Depart, she smacks him about 20 times before she kicks him out of the house. Same exact thing worldwide. And this is what gets rewarded, a la The Help. Global system, white people are doing what they do well because it has worked for them for centuries, all the way back to Gone with the Wind. Anywho, you can check it out if you have the time, interest. Not a must, but I think it might reveal something about how the system works worldwide. With that, I do have something else I wanted to kind of get some input, thoughts around, but I will save that for later in the program. Groovy. We will hit the phone lines. The number again is 760-569-7666. 877-829-7676. And the code is 564-943#. If you're on that line, press *6. If you have questions, comments, if you're on the TalkShoe line, it would be *8. The folks, let's see, 3358, your line should be open, and 8286, your line is open. Not hearing either one of you. Your lines are open. Do you all have questions, comments, or are you just listening?
Hello? Can I be heard?
Yes, male and female.
Okay, this is Tupelo. I had to call in on this line. I couldn't get in on the other.
Okay. I will add the other folks. I'm hoping that at this point we're advanced enough. I can just open up people's lines. So if you call in and put your hand up, you might not get announced. I might just open your line up. So, and it should announce. It should. You should get an audio prompt that says your line has now been opened, and then you can just join in the dialogue as you see fit. So your two lines are open. Feel free to share. And Just Jones, gorgeous black female, and CP Mama Mia, your line is open.
See ya.
Here.
Gus, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I wanted two things. I wanted to thank you for the news clips, because I don't have a television and I don't get to see or hear mainstream news, so I sometimes feel I'm out of sync with the world, which is a good and bad thing at the same time. So thanks for the news clips. And I also wanted to ask for some input about something that happened to a friend of mine today. So I have a good friend who has two younger brothers who are around the ages of I think 23 and 26, but they're autistic. And my friend, of course, is a black female, and her brothers are black. And so they're not, I don't know much about autism, but I would say that they look like they're maybe high functioning, but they're not once you talk to them. So today, today, one of them got accosted by police. They got stopped, and we don't know the story. I know one's in the hospital because one got tased by the police today. And I know that you hear about on the news all the time about the police killing autistic children, especially black. I mean, these boys. They're not kids, but they look grown, but they were tased. One of them was tased by the police in the hospital. And so, but what happened, something happened with the police before where they got accosted by the police, and so they went through this whole kind of rigmarole with the police where they gave the police their pictures, and so they were supposed to be circulated within the police department so they'd get familiar with their faces, and so I guess, that didn't work. So, I suggested to my friend, or she actually came up with, she's going to write letters to, maybe a couple of autistic groups to get some support. But I told her to write a letter and send them certified to the police chief, and then maybe the attorney general and the surgeon general, because this is a problem. And I said that she might want to ask, what's next? Are they going to kill her brothers? Are the police, because this is, it happens all the time. So I just wanted to know if anyone had any further suggestions other than the letter writing campaign.
I know two things I can think of. Number one, if they have any sort of mental health difficulties, they normally have advocacy groups that you might want to that you might want to contact as well to let them know what happened, that these individuals were accosted, and whatever mental health issues that they have, and how deplorable this is, to also get them involved. I know I used to coach Special Olympics, and they have extensive white people that advocate on behalf of any children with special needs, or even once they're over 18 and they're not, quote unquote children anymore. But they advocate around them and do all that they can to see that they're protected and make sure that they get the help that they need. White people normally have, foundations that have some muscle behind them. So I would maybe investigate to see if any of those agencies are in the area where these folks reside, and to also include them, because I'm sure they would be, willing to go to bat and contact the enforcement officials themselves or whomever to get this problem corrected. If the victims, you said they were relatively high functioning, correct?
Well, I don't know how to categorize them, and I don't want to do. I don't think they are high functioning, but I'm not quite sure how you would categorize them. So.
Are they able to? Are they able to? Like, can they go out by themselves? Like, could they go, by themselves to the mall?
Well, I think that they were out themselves, but I don't think you can have a coherent conversation with them. I mean, I'm not sure how to categorize them. But they do go out by themselves, so I guess that makes them high functioning. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, that might scratch the second thing I was going to recommend. That might scratch it if you're unsure of how.
What was it going to be? What was it going to be?
It was going to be more to talking to the victims directly, to get them to have a better grasp of how they're going to be perceived by enforcement officers. Just in probably trying to watch some of those videos from Flex Your Rights, the Busted series. I think I mentioned that, mentioned it repeatedly, but getting them to watch that so that they can understand what happened to them, because I know that probably is pretty traumatic. I know it would be for me, so I'm sure that would be the case for them too, maybe even more so, to get them to watch that so they can have a better understanding of what happened to them. And then, to try to give them some tips on what to do in the future if they should be out. Because I'm sure, just to get it in their head that enforcement officers are not going to respond to them as though they have any special needs. They're just going to see, oh, another nigger. And so that they have that in their head, so that they, can at least try to navigate that situation, at least from a mental level. It won't be so distressing. They'll kind of have an understanding of what's going on.
Okay. But you're right. I actually need to watch that myself.
Every black person should watch those films. There's no excuse. It, I believe, would save some lives. And I've used the suggestions in those films. FlexYourRights.org. They're on YouTube. You can watch them for free. One of them is called... go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just kind of repeating what you were saying, that try to get an advocacy group, trying to get the white people involved to advocate for her brother.
Right.
Okay.
Someone wrote autismspeaks.org. That might be one such organization, to see, if they have any local chapters, or even you can write a letter to the national office, but that might be one. They wrote it in the chat room, autismspeaks.org.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Gus. That's good. I'll pass this information along to her. So thank you very much.
For sure. I'll think if any of the other folks that are listening in, if they have suggestions or feedback, I'll pass it along. I'll think on it. If anything else comes to mind, I'll share as well.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this is like my second time actually calling in, but so I'm not familiar with how you guys few things. I've been listening to the program for quite some time, but it's like my second time calling in. I've been trying to call in for the past couple of weeks, but I noticed you guys were having some issues with TalkShoe and stuff. But anywho, I was just wondering whether or not had anybody been following up on the Brinken case, the gay rights leader.
The who?
I believe his last name is Brinken. Brinken. He's a top Larry Brinken.
I have not. I've been bogged down in schoolwork, so I have no idea what's been going on.
Well,
you said gay rights.
He's a gay rights leader out in San Francisco, I believe. He's the one that was connected to the child porn. I have the article here. Is the police have gotten a hold to his email account, and they're saying, according to the search warrant, San Francisco police acted after receiving a tip from the Los Angeles Police Department, which obtained from AOL an email exchange between a Los Angeles user. Police said that they were able to link the address to Brinken's IP address, and he's the owner of the account, and he paid for it with his credit card. But the thing in it states the warrant claims that these emails contain images of children as young as perhaps 1, 2, or 3 being sodomized by adult men and performing oral sex on adult men as well. And he made a personal comment in the email describing the acts with his email address. They were able to determine it was actually him sending the email, and he quoted stating he loved especially the nigger 2-year-old getting nailed. And he says, hope you will continue so I can see what the little blonde bee is going to get. And then he went on this racist rant saying white power, white supremacy, white D rules. And that's the latest update on that. I was wondering, has anybody heard that this week?
I saw it. I didn't spend a lot of time checking it out. I didn't see the nigger commentary in it, but it was one of those. It's like Dr. Nell Irvin Painter, The History of White People. I don't get surprised, and that might be a bad thing. I think someone commented about that way back when the Sandusky case first broke, and then when it was the high school, the elementary school in California, where the teacher had been there for like 20 years, feeding the children semen cookies and all that stuff. And they were like, wow, this is happening like every day. Why are they doing this? And they were saying maybe it's to desensitize people so that they'll see this and they won't even get upset about it anymore. They'll just be next, moving forward. There won't be any outrage. People won't think that this is incorrect behavior. Because I looked at it and I was just like, yeah, that's white people getting down. Next.
Yeah, it's SOP, standard operating procedure for them.
That's right. That's right. All of that is online if folks want to check it out. Interestingly, they don't have a lot of major news coverage around this the way they did Jerry Sandusky, but it is online. You can check it out. It's on I'm at sfweekly.com. and it's there. And this guy worked for the human rights. That's even more funny. If you all just want some info, so you'll have more background information, I can read a little bit. Then I'll hush again for folks. You can feel free to share. This is from the sfweekly.com. They have obtained the search warrant, which details the items police seized from Brinken and his husband's home. Those items include computers, videos, VHS tapes, and a floppy disk. Read details of the search warrant after the jump. Original story, police say they arrested 66-year-old Larry Brinken, the high-profile gay activist, on possession of child pornography on Friday night. Brinken, a community icon who led the fight for the city to recognize same-sex partnerships, was arrested and booked into San Francisco County Jail, police said. He posted bail and was released Saturday, according to a jail spokesman. Police spokesman Officer Albi Esperanza would only say that the case was still under investigation and would give no more details at this time. Brinken retired from the Human Rights Commission in 2010 and has been a beloved member of the gay community, with the Board of Supervisors even declaring the first week of February, oh man, that's black, as Larry Brinken Week. At the time of his retirement, he earned more than $135,000 yearly. We put in a call to Teresa Sparks, Executive Director of the Human Rights Commission. She told us this allegation is beyond hard to believe. It's almost incredulous. There's no way I could believe such a thing, Sparks told us. He's always been one of my heroes, and he's the epitome of human rights activists. This man who coined the phrase we use in our daily language. I support Larry 100%. Hopefully it will all come out in the investigation. Update, according to search warrant, SFPD acted after receiving a tip from Los Angeles Police Department, which obtained from AOL an email exchange between LA user Zach3737. Police say they linked the AOL address to Brinken's IP address. He is the owner of the account and paid for AOL service with his credit card. The warrant claims these emails contain images of children as young as perhaps a year old being sodomized and performing oral sex on adult men. Zachary3737, whom police allege is Brinken, provided graphic commentary on the photos of interracial adult child sex. Comments included, I loved especially the nigger 2-year-old getting nailed. Hope you'll continue so I can see what the little blonde bitch is going to get. White power, white supremacy, white dick rules, all in quotes. The AOL email account was also linked to Yahoo groups centering around discussions of child porn, according to the search warrant. Investigators say they additionally found emails sent from Brinken's now defunct city email account, Zachary3737. I'll post this in the chat room. I will mute my line. I'll just remind folks of what Mr. Fuller said. The epitome of white supremacy would not be Adolf Hitler. It would be Jeffrey Dahmer. Emasculate, take your gender, kill you, dominate. That would, Mr. Fuller say, Mr. Fuller would say that would be the face of what white supremacy is all about. And this would be another connection, homosexuality and pedophilia. I noticed they didn't use that term at all in this report. No mention of the term pedophilia, which is exactly what this is. But I'll mute my line. Much obliged to the caller for sharing. Very important news report from the past week.
I've just always been surprised that they're surprised of their own behavior. I mean, you can look back at the Carlisle Indian Institute and what they did to the Native Americans at that school, as well as some of the blacks in some of the boarding schools. So they have a history of this behavior. So I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that much either. I'm beginning to think whenever they say that they are surprised, of course, it's just another lie.
Right.
You know, the FBI, these police officers, they all have their identification of who and what kind of person would cause and do such a thing. And if they already have this embedded in their mindset that you know, when they give their profiles that it's always going to be a white male between this age and that age, then this, you know, there's no more surprises. it's just accepting the fact that they're capable of doing things like this, and they need to be watched.
Apparently being a white racist pedophile pays big time, like which Jerry Sandusky is in greater confinement. He's still getting his mega pension. This guy was getting over $100,000 a year. It must, man, it is off the chain to be racist and a pedophile.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to also input. I have had my chuckle this week of white people and their weapons of mass destruction, and with their celebration of their 4th of July upcoming, and they love their celebrations to the fact where they, you think that. By now, with all the warnings, with these fireworks, that you'd get it. Hey, you might want to take some care with this. But of course, we always have some incidences, and of course, you have a racist white person drunk trying to set off fireworks, and of course, bad things happen to them, and I just can't get over laughing sometimes. But that's what they, I guess you want to say that's what they expect when their bombs are bursting in air.
Hello. Hello.
Yep, we can hear you. Not sure who the female voice was, but DC caller, your line should be open. CP, Mama Mia, any of the other folks. As I said, we should be, I'm hoping, cool enough that if you put your hand up, I'll try to just open the lines up and you'll hear the prompt, and then you can join in the dialogue as you see fit. Need to keep the background noise down, though. Picking up a little background noise.
What do you guys think about the, I've seen earlier today, they've had some newer emails surface in regards to Sandusky, I guess the people who were trying to keep the situation internally under wraps. The fact that CNN is, has come out with them exclusively, it's, the emails have surfaced after he's been supposedly convicted about the 2 other managers being involved in the cover-up. Just want to know if anybody had anything to say about that.
Thing I could say is these guys made a lot of money for that school, and they probably made a lot of friends doing their other thing, and they've been trying to hide as much stuff as they can. I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to find stuff 5, 10, 20 years from now.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
This is my first time calling in, and I've been listening for quite some time now. And when I call in, interestingly enough, my signal drops immediately. That's the first thing. So I wanted to, just for a moment, go back to what the female caller that called in regarding the two autistic young men. Dr. Kamal Kambon, in one of his books, and I believe it's the last book, or I'm not quite sure right now which book, but he has an affidavit in the book where he goes step by step. I am this age, I live here, I do not use drugs, I do not have a criminal record, I am not a pedophile, all kinds of sections in this affidavit that is notarized. I suggest that the female caller share with the people or the parents, attempted parents of the autistic young men, that they have affidavits drawn up that are notarized, that these affidavits are put on record with the police department in the area where they are domiciled, give copies to, certified mail copies to the mayor, officials in the area, the police department, and these affidavits are saying what who they are, what the condition is that they are having to deal with, and that these young men carry the affidavits on them at all times, and that they are trained, the young men if possible, depending on their abilities, they're trained how, in addition to watching Flex Your Rights, but that they are trained how to tell, if possible, the officer or officers that they have an affidavit on them, and that they are, if possible, trained how to go into a pocket with 2 fingers, not a whole hand, keep the other hand still, do not move, 2 fingers go in and produce the document, which will already be on file. These are small things. They don't necessarily guarantee our safety, but I have an autistic cousin, and this is something that we have done. He doesn't function well at all, but at least it's there. At least people know, so that just in case something happens, and it probably will, sadly, that they can't say, oh, well, I didn't know. We didn't know. How could we know? You know, on and on what these things, these racist man, racist woman, and racist child does. I'm being codified because I want to say something else. But it's just a thought. I hope that it's something that can be useful. In fact, it might be something that we all might consider doing, because what Dr. Kambon suggests sounds quite reasonable to me. So I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Well, and I want to say thanks to Gus and the participants in the Uruguay book. I believe my wife just got ours ordered yesterday or this morning, and we try to. I think that'll be a very good reference for us as well. Because I've given out my Francis Welsing book, Dr. Francis Welsing book, and I have no idea who I gave it to. So I gotta, that's what happens, I guess, you know, when you try to give people who are less, what should I say, more confused, try to get them an idea of what's going on. And, you know, deal with that. But I just want to say thanks for you guys' understanding of what you were reading and comprehending. And definitely will help me out when I start my reading. And hopefully I can give you guys some information on how that IT's going for your, or what the racist man and racist woman could be doing to your phone lines and your website there pretty soon.
Would love it, would love it, love it. Oh yeah, Yarugo, we're finishing book.
What are they going to do to the phone line?
Say that again?
Yes, sir. What are they going to do to the phone lines?
Oh, I'm just taking some IT classes or networking on the phone company side, where not the end user side, where the information can be passing through, and we're just understanding with the packet information and stuff like that, where your phone line goes digital, and how information can be lost.
Wow.
So we're just getting into some of the parts of it, but it's really intense because we only got 5 weeks, but we have to really do some real comprehending of their words in our courses. Our company is paying for it. I do work for a phone company, so our company is paying for it. And this is when they train you, usually they'll give you word for word. Let's say their tests are multiple choice, and you can pretty much find your answer. But when you're learning technical information, and it's just a lot harder because you have to not only comprehend what they're talking about, and then try to find that answer. So it's been giving some of us frustration because they're not really word for word or exact in their definition, and you try to take it literal, and they're it's trick questions, and we're always so far we're taking it out on our instructor who's black, who's non-white, but we taking out our frustrations with how the racist man and racist woman will write their workbooks. But we're coming along, with the understanding of things. Just trying to figure out how they would do it. That's all. If that made any sense to anybody. Oh, and I also wanted to say I took my father out for his birthday. He wanted to see Snow White for some reason. So me and another family member of mine took my dad to see Snow White. And I would not suggest anybody to go pay to see any of these movies. This movie especially was not entertaining. I giggled through the whole movie. It was hard for me to keep my focus on what was being said to me in the movie. We tried to even see the racism in the movie, but it was so hard to comprehend. Some of us could just chalk it off as a really bad movie, but I know it's just something just not sitting right about that movie. These people spend a lot of money to put something like this out. And they in this movie they make the white woman they're putting her in the place of the black woman. They're putting her in the place as the resurrector of the world in this movie. And they keep saying throughout the movie, only fair can kill fair, can kill the fairest. They keep reinforcing that throughout the movie. Only the fairest can kill the fairest. So this is why the black queen is terrified of this white woman, who she chose not to kill in the first place. But everybody else, she got rid of.
There's a black queen in the movie?
Well, she wore black throughout the movie, and she practiced the black arts, or, the...
symbolic black queen.
Right. She practiced the black arts. And then all of a sudden at the end of the movie, I'm going to just give it away because I don't want nobody to go see it, really. At the end of the movie, all of a sudden, the Catholic Church shows up out of nowhere. And we was like, hold up. Now, one person throughout the movie said anything about Jesus Christ, nothing. In the movie come, they have the power to ordain Snow White as the new queen. Okay? Now keep in mind, she's supposed to be rescued by one of the princes and stuff, but in this movie, she has a thing going on with two males, both white. Okay? Throughout the movie, everybody in the movie is white. It's crazy. They had white people dressed up as North African blacks. Moors. We suspect, me and my dad suspect these are Moors because they had, some African tribes. They have marks on their cheek, right? In their cheek. They also had the tattoos that you see in some Indian females. Okay, that they tat themselves up along their face and their hands and their feet. So we was like, okay, hold up. Why? They couldn't find no black actors to play these parts. So I was like, wait a minute. Everybody in the movie is white. So not one black person in the movie, but yet all the symbolism is there to make black people out to be the evil ones, and white people ought to be the resurrector of the world. Only the white people can save the world.
And it needs saving, yeah.
Say that again.
And because obviously it needs saving is what they, infer. The quest for civilization, quote unquote.
Yeah, but keep in mind throughout the movie that the white queen dressed in black was causing death in the land too. Okay, wherever she was, the land died, literally died.
Wait,
so it was like right, the white queen dressed in black.
Oh.
Representing the black queen, the evil queen. Wherever she went, the land died. Like the symbolism of winter coming. And wherever Snow White, when she takes over, now you have the summer or the spring equinox coming into play. So I'm like, okay, we got enough of this going on, but somebody has some love for it. I didn't like it at all. I like I said, I chuckled and laughed throughout the whole movie. I know I was disturbing white people, and I did not care because it was just blatant. It was just so blatant. I was like, what? They couldn't, oh, now we got Moors in the movie, but now the Moors are white, I can't take no more of this pop. And, oh my God, it was just, it was hard. It was hard to sit through. And after that, we went to see Prometheus.
Oh gosh.
And I got to get the bootleg because I got to watch that movie again. I feel I missed something in that movie. It's a whole lot more interesting than Snow White. And what was interesting was, I'm going to give this movie away too. So, I should be able to get the bootleg.
Got it.
Don't pay for it. Just get the bootleg. They're basing, to me, I got from it, is that they're basing the white world off of what these white beings or these white aliens or whichever you want to call it, were doing. That they were created by these beings. Again, only one black person was, it was two non-white people, I think. One brother and I believe it was a Japanese person. I think he was Japanese. But the rest of the people were white people, I believe. Or classified. They were classified themselves as white. And there's still some stuff that's unclear about it. For some reason they had the idea that the alien race wanted to destroy the earth. And after they went through the trouble of creating what they needed to create, they wanted to go back and destroy it for some reason. And I guess the biological entity they would call the alien is the result of these aliens tinkering with life, or the end result to come Like Gus said, this guy's body of work is to be studied. But he seems to be really fixated on how a white man came about. And he made it a point that these beings were white.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I just want to ask the male caller who was talking about Prometheus. Did you notice in the beginning when they showed the first, I guess, God-like figure kind of sacrificing himself as a means to create humanity? He drank some type of black substance, and then they go really into detail and they show how this black substance breaks up his DNA. And I instantly thought about Frances Cress Welsing when she was talking about the theory of white genetic annihilation.
Yeah, but you remember, as it broke it up, it also started rebuilding it too.
Right.
Resequencing it like it had to destroy what was there in order to perfect it. You see, and that's why I have to watch it again and get because I was like, okay, you got these white beings running around here in this black world, and they're supposed to be perfected, but yet the substance that they're using is black.
And something else you said really was interesting to me, outside of the point, but we're not completely disconnected from the point, but you mentioned how your father wanted to see Snow White, and he also wanted to see Prometheus. Yeah. And it's interesting because
he wouldn't go to Prometheus with us because his reasoning was he don't like movies that are limited. His thought process was that they were going to be on the ship. Their ideas are limited. Their scope was limited. They can't run away. The decisions are limited. But he was thinking that Snow White will be more depth to it, more greater thought process. Like the other movies that you would see of that type of era. I want to say I had the thought process that it might be a good movie because Little Red Riding Hood turned out to be a decent movie. You see, it's a decent movie. Exciting.
About it because my brother, or my attempted brother or whatever, he really wanted to see Snow White, and he also saw Prometheus, and he liked them both. I saw it as a pattern, a possible pattern of white identification. I'm not sure, but I just thought it was interesting that you also saw the same films.
Yeah, man, my dad didn't like Snow White at all. As a matter of fact, he said nobody should talk about this movie ever again. We should even, nothing happened today. We about to ask you don't remember anything. But we thought it was going to be something more in depth about it because he's hip to some things, and he was just trying to see the same thing I was seeing. What are they trying to say within the movie? But we got so confused. We didn't know if it was supposed to be a love story. What was going on there? It was just I lost. I couldn't.
I haven't seen either one of them, but I think for Snow White, just by the way you're describing it, it just sounds like it's another one of those movies like The Planet of the Apes, just reasserting to white people that they have to continue to keep and maintain power in order to survive, because now with their numbers supposedly decreasing, it's like it's creating the paranoia that if they lose power, then, you know, all hell is going to break through. But I thought when I first heard of Prometheus, I tend to, I read some comic books, not as much as I used to when I was into graphic design and stuff like that. But when I had first heard it, you know, before I even seen the trailer, I thought that they were referring to the comic book Prometheus. So that's what had interested me. But once I saw the trailer, I just saw that, you know, it was more to it, and I was just like, oh, no, I'm not going to go see that. But
yeah, I originally thought that too.
Yeah.
Have you seen the website for Prometheus?
No.
Because it, you know, they have, when they release movies now, they do real extensive, you know, create the world that the movie is based in. Try and do that on the website for it. And they got like a timeline of Wayland Industries, which is the company that, you know, provides all the figures heavily in the movie. And they have just, you know, piece by piece the development that this, you know, guy supposedly is going to do, you know, that'll lead to space travel, you know, super warp, you know, artificial life, just all, basically what they're all reaching for now, you know, and it's kind of deep on the Urugu tip, yeah. So, I read it and I was like, you know, as a sort of science fiction fan, but, you know, rethinking all of it right now. But it was real in depth and you know, could suck you in as a world, but that's the world that they're aiming for. It's I was kind of a little bit taken aback by it, but check it out.
Okay.
You know what was another interesting? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I was going to say another interesting thing about Prometheus was how the character of Idris Elba had a sexual encounter with Charlize Theron's character, and, you know, of course, you know, later on he ends up dying with the other two, I think, non-white people.
But again, he was also the main guy that figured out, just by observation,
right,
that where they was at was not the place they wanted to be. This was a weapons depot, and you know, he was able to figure this out real quick and fast compared to everybody else,
right,
who had specialized it.
Yeah, and I think it was like another scene, like before, you know, him and the other two non-white people on his ship kind of made the decision that they were going to, you know, stay and kind of sacrifice themselves for the white world. That another white person, another white male, he got infected or something and had mutated into this kind of crazy creature, and he was going to die, and Charlize Theron's character was saying, no, you can't let him onto the ship, you know. And I remember Idris Elba's character was really kind of vying, like, we can save this white man, we can save this man, we can save this man. So it was interesting how he was kind of the protector of them.
Very interesting. But, you know, again, with our study of movies and how the black male character is supposed to be a hero for white people, you know, now Idris is being put in that, I think it's Idris, is being put in that role. as a savior, who's going to come to our rescue when everything hits the fan. And to have some black man sacrificing themselves for us.
Standard operating procedure, SOP. Thank the female caller. The number, give out again really quick in case anyone is listening in wants to participate. 760-569-7676. And the code is 564-943#. Press *6 if you dial that line and you have questions, comments. If you're on the TalkShoe line, it's *8. If you have questions, I saw someone in Massachusetts had dialed in. I don't know if they got disconnected. If you have questions or comments, ring back in. I'll get you. If you're on the free HD line, I'll get you as well. Again, I'm just going to open the lines up, so you might not get a big announcement if you dial in, but if you put your hand up, I'll just open your line up. I requested our caller 8225, the non-white male. I requested him to dial in today to share more. I think he was on the program yesterday about Yurugu. I hope people are doing their reading. We're completing the book for this Friday, 490 to the end. Keep up with the reading, please. But I requested that he dial in. He was sharing a little bit about his own situation, black mother, white father, and I thought it would be interesting to hear a little bit more about that situation. He said his mom is less confused. They're not together anymore, but that his mom is less confused. She has some idea about what's up, and he had some info about his white father as well, who he said was so-called homosexual. Definitely wanted to hear a bit more on that, and also I've been hearing from some listeners who are dealing with different situations, trying to solve problems. There was another non-white listener who was talking about how to navigate. His sister-in-law is unfortunately married to a suspected racist, and he's trying to figure out how to keep his young child out of this situation without upsetting everyone else in the family. Got a lot of other family members who are more confused. So I wanted to hear some input from that, if anybody out there has been dealing with that situation or has any thoughts. But for our caller 8225, if you had any more that you wanted to share about what we were talking about yesterday, or if anyone had thoughts about the situation that I just gave out, I definitely would enjoy hearing about it.
Well, I could share plenty. I just don't exactly know where to start. If you have any questions.
At what point, given your situation, when you started becoming less confused, at what point did that impact the way that you saw your mom's former husband?
Well, it's like saying, I thought he was white and acted white before I knew, and after I knew, he still does the same thing, so still pretty white, and this is just an explanation of, how they're doing that. But, we'll still have like family dinners, and we'll just be clowning white folks in front of him, he takes it, because she a little bit more, domineering than him for sure. Like I said yesterday, he's more like Ned Flanders. So, we have a little bit of fun with him, but at what does it do? What does it solve? She used to tell me, that me and my brother, honestly, she said that we had a advantage somewhat in being mixed, in that we have a white father, so we can't hate white people, even though they deserve it. It might not be the best base emotion to operate out of in order to break the system or bring justice to the world. Now I would still give that thought, myself. But I got plenty of anecdotes it's a weird life, you know, but it's mine. So.
Do you think he's a racist?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, they all are. That's what it means. But you know, it's like you know, he's a Democrat, but you get the sense that you know, he likes the dramatic, and you know, so it's like, oh God, did you hear? So it was constantly tell me about problems in the world with African countries, because he, you know, was interested in Africa and, you know, has African friends, and, you know, all this jazz. You know, and what I get, my overall sense is a combination of Ururu and basically what I see when the interaction takes place. It's like there's the admiration and that turns into jealousy and then spurs all the actions on. So, you know, if you don't take it to that next level, that last level, which is the reactive, then you're just stuck in the appreciation. So, you know, so he has, you know, the affinity and all that jazz. But, you know, it's opportunities to victimize at least myself, I try and curtail, and, you know, I really can't see super ways to be saying stuff like that, you know. But he's more in the rhetorical vein, like wants peace on earth, you know, United Nations, all that jazz. But we still, you know, tell him white folks are full of shit. He's like, and he don't really have many white friends, so he knows that's what's up. So.
You said yesterday he's also so-called homosexual?
Yeah. Yeah, he was adopted, and his adopted parents, I think the mother, my grandmother, but, you know, not by blood, was a little crazy, and they had financial troubles, drove her a little crazy. I remember him saying at one point that he would come into, his mom would call him to come into her room when he was a kid, and when he came in, her leg would be open, and then she'd like castigate him for looking and close her thing, and then just start spanking him. You know, but doing it deliberately, you know. Just crazy stuff. And one would have to think, you know, like they say about strippers, you know, they had daddy issues, you know, so I think yeah, mommy issues, and that, you know, he was in the seminary, you know. He didn't tell me he got touched in the cemetery, but he did tell me about the mother incident, and so you never know. You never know. But he was, you know, obviously with my mom living a lie, but you know, I think he in his mind he justified it by trying to, you know, you know, get married, lead a somewhat normal life, but still, you know, marry a black woman. Kind of weird for them back in the day. But I think my mom figured out, she said she figured out when he would always be, you're like, oh, I'm going to go watch the game with the guys, stuff like that. And she knew he hidden into sports. And then she saw one of his friends, this guy named Sunshine, down here walking in the street, and he was in cross-dress, and my mom had like a lot of groceries at the time, so but she recognized him, so she was like, Sunshine, you better come here and help me with these groceries, you know. And after that, it was just like, yeah, out in the open.
Do you know if he's sexually involved with non-white males?
Certain of it.
You said certain of it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, we had actually his boyfriend or partner growing up was a black guy. So, he cooked around the house and was, I think my mom has a theory on him, and he perhaps likes to get back. He likes to have the white gay sugar daddy. So he likes to get back at the white man through that. The logic, So we had issues with him just trying to be profligate with our father's money, which was to provide for us, and he'd be bringing his checkbook out and like, this is why I can't afford this, but we know that the other dude just, spends like a sink faucet. So there's issues growing up.
Wow. I don't want to have you on the spot like you're being interviewed. I just thought it was interesting.
I would love to share. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
What were your experiences growing up? Your father is white?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were your experiences like growing up? Like, what were your experiences like around whites, around blacks? Because of your I don't know what you like to prefer to call yourself, biracial or mixed, or
Oh, I call myself black. Yeah, because there's only one color. It's brown. Either you got it or you don't. Nobody's blue out here, so. It's just a gradient. I actually like to think of it as like full or empty, so, which is more to the point. So I'm half full. Growing up, I identify as black, but, there's some interesting things that go on. And I have an anecdote would like to share, but I like to tell often, but it was on my birthday, and I traveled downtown from my house to get some comic books when I was a kid. I got on the bus, and there was this albino black dude on the bus. He was albino black and belly black, and he was all punked out, and I had the leather and studs and stuff. I seen him on the bus, so whatever. I'm just in my Walkman listening to rap. And I go get the comics. I see him around the same market. So then I go and catch the bus back home, and I'm like reading the comics, and I look up. The next second, he's like right there, like at the bus stop at the other end. And he asked me, "What are you, black or white?" And I'm darker than him. He's albino, And I was like, I'm black and white. And he spits at my feet. And I'm just like, okay. So I get up off the seat and go to an adjoining wall, but, just a safer distance away from the dude. And I'm reading my comic, and then a couple minutes pass by. Next thing I know, I look up, and he's strafing, like walking past me, and spits in my face. So then but he's much bigger than me and older than me. It's like, okay, what am I going to do here? The bus comes, he gets on opposite me. I sit up front to try and, because you don't sit in the back in that situation of the bus. So I sat up front, and he got across from me and pulled out a little stud covered belt thing and was wrapping around his hands like a brass knuckle or something like that. At that point, I asked for security from the bus driver, and the bus was delayed. He ended up getting off the bus, probably got away. But it was just weird. Like after that, I was like, I'm black. Let me just like, let me not complicate things for albino dudes. I don't know what that.
So the albino dude made you choose a side by terrorizing you. Is that what I'm hearing?
What did you say?
I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but what I heard is that what you were saying, that the albino brother made you choose a side by terrorizing you.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Wow.
Man, that's sad, but what made you choose black after that, then? I mean, he was terrorized.
At that age, I already knew that, the black is, not being able to catch a cab. It's not my decision, So I was black, but he asked what I was, and I said, mixed of black and white, and I said I'm black and white. So maybe not divulge that information after this. Like, let me just not, confuse it for them.
Can I ask, how did that make you feel when it was all happening?
When I was a little kid, I was a little scared, but, it wasn't like I knew it was confusion in his mind, or issues, obviously, I figured that at that age, even knew that being albino was probably tougher than being mixed in, the quandary that I'm in, but,
How did you get on the subject about your so-called color or classification? How did you get on that subject with this guy?
He asked me.
He just asked you, are you black or white?
He said, what ethnicity or, whatever the term was for the day at the time. He said, what are you, I said, what do you mean? Your race. I'm black and white. And then a couple of seconds, or maybe a minute passed, and then he spit, and it came dangerously close to my shoes or something. So, all right, let me get up. But, yeah.
He never divulged to you what he was?
I didn't ask him. I wasn't trying to talk with him, but it wasn't like a conversation. It was just,
You know what's funny about that to me?
Say what?
So you know what's funny about that to me? In my head, I'm like, dang, them albinos are a trip. When I was dating a white guy, other than the anti-sexual white male at the coffee shop, the meanest, glaringest look I got was from an albino with blonde dreads who was over 6 feet tall, walking like a carpet. I was crossing the street, and he gave me the most horrific look ever.
My experience with an albino brother, I had to figure it out because when I ran into the brother, he had red hair. It's really, but I could tell there was something different about him by the way he spoke. Just a vibe was hitting me that he's not regular, but he came out of the blue, was real nice to me. And I said, I said to myself, man, this white dude is a little too nice, right? But we were working at this place that made equipment for pools, to clean pools with, and I guess it created ozone. But he was the engineer, and this white lady was supposed to be his helper. I've never seen somebody treat a white woman with such disdain as this brother did. I was like, wow, you know. It dawned on me later, you know what? I think that dude was an albino, you know. You know, that's probably why I was the only other black guy. I was the darkest skinned guy that was there, and he probably knew that because he saw me. He's like, you know, oh, another brother, thank God, you know. But I didn't realize that at the moment. But yeah, I guess I can see why, you know, some of these albinos would react the way they react.
Well, could I ask you, what do you think in my story, what do you think his issue was?
He probably was, I don't know, I really can't. I mean, if he asked you who you was, and you were, I don't know, maybe he was running into people all day talking that, you know, I'm black and white stuff all day. They probably, you know, he just got tired of hearing it, you know, the confusion.
But what was crazy to me is that, you know, he was on the first bus I got on and got off downtown or whatever in the town I'm in, and then was getting on the bus. He was following me, basically what I'm saying. So,
for context, the caller, would it be, if you don't feel comfortable, you know, feel free not to share. That's the rule for everybody.
Yeah, it's Seattle. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I think that is extremely important. The geographic location of where this takes place at. Man, I can tell you, being up here, woo. And I mean, really, it all just goes back to that confusion. When you are in bed with white people and you end up having the offspring, you have a non-white parent and a white parent. I'm not talking about the caller, but just seeing those people in this environment and how confused they are, I can only imagine it would be exponentially worse for a quote-unquote albino non-white person. I was sitting in the chat room thinking how crazy that is. How can I be albino, but I'm not white? How can that be? I'm whiter than anybody in here, whatever we mean when we say white. I am the person lacking color above anybody else in the room, but I'm still not white. How can that be? I would be mad as hell, like being mistreated every day. You're not white, get over there, nigga, but I'm albino. Doesn't matter, get over there. Like, oh, I would be furious. I would be furious. And especially being in Seattle, I would be furious.
Gus, the albino that gave me the glaring look was in Seattle in the Pikes Place Market.
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, he had.
Well, my albino was out there in Seattle too, so running into a lot of albinos out there.
That's where I went.
And they don't like white people. But you know what the thing is? I guess for an albino, they probably have two black parents, so I guess in that sense they wouldn't necessarily identify with white people. They would still see themselves as black, even though, you know, they lack the coloring because of a genetic mutation or whatever. So I could understand how they would still have some hostility toward white people, you know, and be mistrustful of somebody they suspected had a white parent. I could understand that. But it is kind of ironic when you know, look at the fact that some of them are even paler than white people. You know, and still, yeah, like I said, because of them being mistreated as well, I could understand why they would have an issue with white people.
And I also wonder, too, if albinos have issues with, you know, their fellow black people, like especially like the albinos in many countries in Africa, because a lot of them are ostracized. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I can understand that in Africa. I mean, they're terrorized in Africa, so
yeah,
I can understand that portion there. I mean, they're terrorized by black people, and their saviors may be white people over there.
Well, in some of the places in Africa, they are mistreated, and in others, it doesn't seem to be as bad. I've seen pictures of quite a few albinos in Nigeria, like at weddings and things like that. They don't seem to be mistreated. You know, I see them socializing with all the rest of the Nigerian people, but I'm trying to think if it was Tanzania. It was somewhere in central.
Tanzania. You're right, Tanzania, yeah.
That's where they have it pretty bad. One, the sun is so hot, they tend to get cancer and other things. And then there's this superstition among other people there that something about magic being in their bones or some kind of healing power, so they will kill them or hack off their limbs to get their bones, which is really, it's strange to me.
I have
an incident
I don't know where that.
in Uganda.
I would like to know where that came from, because I always understood it where they were cursed. They were cursed, and that they kept. That's what my understanding. So I would love to know where they got that idea that they were magically inclined.
Not that they are magically inclined, that their bones. They don't say that albino people are magically inclined people. It's about the bones. But if you Google that, albinos in Tanzania, you should be able to come on more information about that. But there was a documentary about it. And you can find pictures of African women carrying albino babies on their backs as well. It's kind of strange because the largest populations that I see of albino people is on the continent of Africa. And it's usually among the darkest Africans that I see the mutation the most.
Right.
Well, that's where you can see it. Well, actually, no, excuse me. I was thinking about vitiligo, because I know some white folks with vitiligo, and you're like, oh, really? You can almost not tell the difference. But
at least with albinos, they still look like they're black people. They have features. With these racist people, whoever's saying that they are black albino, that I don't think so, because they don't have no features like some of these black people. And I know some albinos. I grew up with some albinos, and they're not insane. They don't think like these white people, so they still have some measure of which we would call common sense.
I can agree to that. Actually, Anderson Cooper is an albino. So you can see the stark difference from albino coming from the continent versus someone like him.
Yeah. He is an albino of what race?
Well, he's white.
Yeah, because when he was younger, he had black hair. He had very dark hair.
Yeah.
He's a Persian.
Is he an albino or just gray prematurely?
They consider him an albino.
Of what race? Is he classified as white?
Yes, he's classified as white.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And the gentleman that grew up with the people affected by albinism, did they share their experiences? Like, were they treated better than their darker skinned brethren, or, I mean, what were their experiences? Given that their skin is very, very pale.
Oh, I don't want to give the impression that I lived with them. We all were kids. And she was younger than me. It's a female. She's a little younger than me.
Or did you observe any preferential treatment just given the color difference or anything like that?
No, not to her. Not to her. We treated her like regular black girl. So she probably got mistreated like a black girl. She got mistreated just like all the other black girls.
White.
Oh no, I don't know. Really, because she was so much younger than us. I didn't really witness her being given favoritism in her classroom, because she was in a different classroom. Like let's say I was maybe in the 6th and she was in the 4th or whatever. That kind of a difference. And when I got to high school, she's a 9th grader or whatever. That kind of a difference. So I wasn't really in the classroom with her. I knew her because she was in the neighborhood. There was only so many black people where we were living anyway. So we would all run around together, play together, whatever. And we knew her, and so I'm pretty sure she got treated just like all other black females. Because she does not look well. She has black features, so I don't think white people would get confused if they saw her. But
that gets back to what Gus was talking about. What does it mean to be a white person?
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
I'd also
Does
say.
anybody suspect? Oh, go ahead.
Feel free.
No, I was saying, with all these movies coming out, does anybody suspect? I try and keep up with the politics and especially what's going on overseas. Does anybody suspect anything major to happen either before the election or before the end of the year in regards to us going against Iran and stuff like that? And, do some of these movies help white people, gain that patriotic posture with some of these movies that kind of come out reinforcing that white supremacy behavior?
Well, with military movies, I know that happens to do it. That's propaganda big time, especially that C.O.W.S movie that came out. Mm-hmm. Big time propaganda. Anything with the military, where they're killing and destroying without a care. And where everybody's the enemy. Everybody's the enemy, so, And I noticed that, when my daughter gave me this, she told me that the G.I. Joe movie was pushed back. It was supposed to have been coming out yesterday or on her birthday. Yes, I think on the 28th. It's supposed to have came out on the 28th, and they pushed it back to next year. So they probably gonna put some more things in there, or maybe that movie was gonna reveal something. They ain't want to reveal it too soon.
I agree as far as the military is concerned. One of my white friends today, they had on a T-shirt.
White friends, oh my Lord, in Jesus' name.
Well, I agree with that. One of my white associates, the person that I study, and I try to learn from as much about the system of white supremacy as I can. But I guess he would consider me a friend to him because I do study him so well. Anyway, he today had on a T-shirt. He's a military person. He's an army person, and he had a T-shirt with a grenade and the peace sign. And I said, well, what does that mean to you, a grenade and a peace sign? He said, well, to me, it's patriotic. It means that I can come to you in peace, but if you mess with me, I'll kill you because I'm an American. So I said, okay, so this is what they stand for. This is the type of thing, the type of contradictions that are held as realities and as truths in their minds, in their community.
Well, it's
guess what
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll wait till you done.
I was saying it's similar to if you read some of Thomas Jefferson's papers in regards to how they referred to the Native Americans. You know, his posture was either you assimilate or be annihilated. So it's, you know, nothing. Their mindset and their goal is still the same.
You know, we were watching the G.I. Joe cartoon, me and my daughter, and one of the black characters, Ripcord, in this cartoon, was apparently captured at one time, and apparently was a part of some kind of experimentation, where then he mutated into a monster. Now, they had a little scene when they did the mutation of the young man. He changed on a little computer screen, but when his computer screen or whatever, his blood changed or something like that, it changed into the shape of the continent of Africa. And I turned to my daughter, I said, "Did you see that?" She said, "Yeah, I saw that." And I was like, "What? What did I just see? You know, what did I just see? I mean, are you telling me that you're going to attack the entire continent of Africa and change everybody into monsters?" You know, I said, "Wow," you know, and he was so intricate. He was so intricate in this in these episodes to the Cobra Commander, because he was the first of his kind or something like that. And I was listening to the Wayans brothers who played their part. He said he wasn't in this movie.
Yeah.
And he played that part, Ripcord. He said he wasn't in this movie. So I'm like, now that they pushed it back, I wonder how sudden they're going to put him in this movie. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I can hear you now.
For the person who said that they had a white friend, do you consider that as like acting like a double agent, so to speak? Because I know you can't have a white friend in a system of white supremacy, so do you consider yourself trying to be somewhat like a, you know, infiltrating their camp to learn what they, how they operate?
I mean, I guess in a way, yeah, because I feel that I need to learn how they're refining the system of racism, white supremacy, and how, you know, I can counter that system and how I can effectively take it down. But also, you know, I'm a student of Neely Fuller as well, and I believe that, you know, in the system of racism, white supremacy, the only place that we can get things from as far as resources are from white people. So if I would like to, you know, amass resources as well as take down the system of white supremacy in the process, I would have to get it from, you know, white people being around me and, you know, get it from their privilege.
Have you ever heard white males refer to each other as Yankees? If so, what does that mean? Or Gus or anyone? Because I've been among white males, you know, talking about each other, and they will often refer to each other as Yankee, or is he a Yankee, or, and I don't understand what that means.
They usually refer to Yankees, white Northerners, primarily.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
The industrialized part of the country is when they say, well, okay. I live in Florida, so we hear it a lot because a lot of the natives, we joke that hardly anybody in Florida is really native to here. They're all from out of town. So we hear a lot of people say, oh, you know, Yankees are coming down and all that stuff. At least when I'm around white people. Yeah. That's like their, you know, slang for white Northerners.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have a question. How can you reconcile getting resources from white people when, I mean, it's proven that they mistreat you at the same time? So,
listen, observe when you're around them, I guess.
Right. I mean, I listen and observe, and I observe a lot of just.
I see it as you have no choice. I mean, you are in no position. Just like Neely Fuller said, you're a professional soldier. Be prepared to surrender at all times, or just be prepared to kill everybody.
Right. No. So you just are supposed to take the mistreatment at the same time you're learning to subvert the system.
Yeah, you really have no other choice but to take it unless you're not going to take it anymore. And you know, if you're not prepared to take it to that level, then you might as well get prepared to surrender. And I'm not ready to take it to any level. I'm just saying, like, I personally just don't like being around white people. Try to avoid them. So. But I understand that they are the ones with the resources. But I guess what you're saying is that you just have to take the mistreatment. Just roll with the punches. Yep, I almost got caught up myself today. White male got mad at me because I didn't either turn my blinker on fast enough for him or whatever, and I got so mad. I told my wife and family to get out the car because I'm about to go hunt this food down. my wife had to, try to calm down. Luckily, I didn't catch up to him. Calm down. My wife had to remind me, you would have been in jail. You would have been all in trouble. Even though he started it, you would have been one underneath the jail and all this and all that. And I said, you're absolutely right. I guess the only option would have been to kill him. Just to completely take him off this earth. That would have been the only option. I just do what I used to do, just beat him up.
Well, I can definitely agree with your observation on that, because I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody has to, be like that when you're at work, and it can be hard when you're walking amongst wolves, so to speak.
One of the folks in the chat room, we had about 15 minutes left on the program. One of the people in the chat room, this is directed at the caller who said they had a white friend that they were trying to get information from. They were saying that the quote-unquote white friend is not going to give any useful information. And I was just curious if you had some other evidence of constructive information that you've got from this suspected racist quote-unquote white friend.
I mean, as far as, certain things, as far as handshakes and the way that, you're supposed to make your elbow at a 90-degree angle and, just certain things that they tell you to help you get by in the system of racism, white supremacy that you wouldn't otherwise learn if you hadn't been as open to their friendship, I guess, or to their company, rather. I also find that truth is the best is the best way to go into any situation with any person, especially with a white person who has, the power and the agency to, charge you with felonies or to take your life and, say that they were standing their ground. I also think that, if you are truthful with them, there are a lot of sympathetic white people or empathetic white people who feel that, the system of racism, white supremacy as it stands is not a fair one, and they don't want anything to do with it. And they're willing, to help you as much as they can and within their ability, or as far as they're willing to, extend their privilege, to you if you're willing to take that and to just talk to them and listen to their story. A lot of it is just person-to-person interactions that people are seeking. And I find that a lot of white people have so much family issues, their whole family dynamic is that of chaos and dysfunction, even more so than the African family unit, considering our African-American, family unit, considering our term of servitude and slavery in the Americas, we still have, very close-knit and very tight family values. But when you look at the European family in the Americas, they're very dysfunctional and, they lack that. So they're looking for, they appreciate that in their non-white friends and their non-white, company. And, that's something that they're willing to, give you financial resources, give you political resources, give you all different types of resources, just to listen to them, just to be their friend, quote unquote. I don't know if that answers your question.
I just wanted to point out that term fair was used. Man, I've told people just being attentive to words. Frequently when it's used, it will be at a very critical juncture.
I just wanted to comment that, I understand where you're coming from. I just think for me personally, I lost my job last July, and I must say it's been a wake-up call for me because I've tried to be or think kumbaya-ic when it comes to white people to some degree. But I've always had an issue with white people. But now I've just laid down the hammer. I see them for what they are, and I make no apologies about it. The only thing that a white person can teach me is that they are who they are, and that, it's just we have to be convinced of that as well. And just in the last week or so, just listening to some of the programs and stuff, the more and more I look around and see how things are going in the world, and just listening to the program, I am, just like Gus says all the time, thoroughly convinced. They are absolutely dedicated to keeping and maintaining the system, and it's really up to us to change our behavior. On my Facebook page, I got people who are white, who I grew up with in Bermuda as friends, but of course, I've never spoken to them ever since I left. But I can't see them the same way, because the fact of the matter is that they are white people, and that they benefit from the system. And absolutely under any circumstance do I associate with them or have sympathy. That's just like how the fires are going out in Colorado. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But, I just find that's 300 houses left of them that we have to worry about. I guess maybe I'm a little bit too extreme, but it's so easy for us because we've been conditioned to be sympathetic, because we are humanistic anyways. But I just don't find any room in trying to give sympathy to people who are out to do us harm. I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I agree with you, and that's what I meant when I said that honesty comes in, like, calling them out when they would make racist comments, calling them out when they would say things like, "Oh, I'm not a racist, but I don't benefit from the system of white supremacy, but other people see me as white." But if other people see you as white, then you're benefiting from the system of white supremacy nonetheless. So just certain things like that, not allowing them to be sympathetic for themselves in the system where they're reaping benefits from it. Certain things like that, I think that when you call them out honestly and openly and allow them to understand that, wow, wait a minute, let me rethink this here. Actually, I've been brainwashed to think that I'm entitled to these benefits. You know what I'm saying? Even though they may have already known that, but if I'm around them, they can't come at me with nonsense. They can't come at me with the flim flam and try to tell me, pee on me and tell me it's raining. I don't allow for that to happen anytime I'm in the presence of a white person. But and it's always anytime a white person is around, I always try to make sure the majority of us in the room are non-white people. So nonetheless, we'll have one or two white people there, but the majority of us will be non-white, and so we don't allow. Me personally, I'm the main one. I don't allow for anything, contrary to to reality and to logic to be said in the room when it comes to white supremacy, racism.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and I can't wait. This is actually in my college. I'm a college student, so I'm graduating next year. So I'll be done with that. So at least, if I'm trying to do something for us and our people moving forward, we have to learn what they're trying to do against us, so we can develop a counterattack and be strategic about it, not just talk about it, but also be about it.
Yeah, I would just recommend, don't try to convince them of anything. Because they'll just sit there and suck your energy till, you're blue in the face and you'll be exasperated. That's their M.O.,
Yeah, I don't try to convince them. I just let them know that it's not working with me, so, they can take that somewhere else. If they want to be in this circle, they have to understand that they're going to reap the benefits of the system of racism, white supremacy, if they're classifying themselves as a white, because no one, is forcing them to check that box. So if they're going to check that box, they're accepting, everything, the inheritance. If they're going to accept the farm that their great-great-grandfather built on the backs of slaves, and they're going to accept that money for their tuition, then they're reaping the benefits of the system of racism, white supremacy. And to see it any other way is nonsensical,
I mean, then what?
And that's it. And they're like, you're absolutely right. I'm a white supremacist. And, then we can be honest, we can move forward. And, if we can still, converse and talk about politics and dialogue and bounce off of one another's ideas, and I can understand that they're in it for the preservation of their race. I don't have to worry about that, because I know if I'm ever with a white woman, the child's going to look like me, some variation, some shade of brown. So I don't have to worry about the genetic annihilation of my race. But I understand that that's what they're in the world for. That's what they're in business for, and the preserving of their kind. And that's fine by me, as long as my kind is preserved as well. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I was asking a question. Are you saying that if you had sexual intercourse with a white female, that you don't stand a chance of being genetically annihilated when you have children?
Right.
I don't agree with that. I've seen far too many cases of children that black people have had with white people, and those children within 2 generations can look just like white people, because if that non-white child that has a white parent has a child with a white person, just look up Grace Jones and her grandchild. It looks remotely nothing like her. And if it was not possible for you to be genetically annihilated, they wouldn't be seeking to do it so much, and they wouldn't be seeking to get black females with white males so much. That was actually the plan that they published in the New York Times article in 1910 about how to eliminate the Negro, and they particularly favored using black females with white husbands to accomplish that.
Yeah, they did the same thing.
I mean, I would agree with that because I've seen that in my own family. I mean, you know, like I have Creole and you know, French and African and Native American and all, you know, all different types of people in my family. And my great-grandmother Kuti, you know, was even on the news because she had so many variations of great-grandchildren who were white and African and, you know, Mexican and Puerto Rican and just so many different types of children. And she was herself was a white great-grandmother, you know, from a French father and, you know, a Mexican mother. But, you know, I mean, I just, you know, I don't think that that white people in general are all you know, are all for the system of racism and white supremacy. A lot of people are actively against it, and they try in everything they do to actively not reap the benefits.
I have a question for you. Have you ever been sexually involved, or are you currently involved with a white female?
No. And thank you for asking that question because I did get a bit off of topic. But, I mean, as far as being annihilated, I do understand that black people can be genetically annihilated within a number of generations if they continue to mate with white people. And that's not something I would be into because it repulses. It's something that's repulsive to me to be with a white person. But I'm just saying as a non-white person, that's something that I don't, you know, automatically, when I talk to my non-white friends, they're like, you know, it can't be racism. White people can't be against us because we're black. It has to be political. It has to be strategic. It can't be because of the color of our skin. And I have to remind them that the category of race was invented by white people. They created the category of race to define themselves in opposition to the colored people they found after circumnavigating the entire planet. So we have to understand that white is a category that's in opposition to us, and we didn't invent that. Because when they came to Africa, we actually invited them in, gave them land, and gave them our women. But when they stayed around for not once, they saw that the children were brown. They were not white. It would take a few years, a few more generations of breeding, of crossbreeding rather, to take out the black gene, you know, which is dominant and which could still pop up at any given time in the future breeding of the children. So I mean, I also, you know, I think that we have to understand that they're in it for a different reason. That the reason of genetic annihilation is one of their major components of business of the system of racism.
But is it really taking them out? Is it really taking them out or prolonging their life? Just like in that movie Prometheus, he had to be torn down, and all of a sudden, his DNA was rewritten as though it had to be perfected. Now, is it really killing them off, or are we their fountain of youth?
And I would say that we're their fountain of youth. We're their fountain of youth because they're such a minority. They're such a small minority. After a while, they start to inbreed. Like, when you talk about certain dogs like Labradors with white people, the first thing they'll say is they're inbred, they're inbred, they're inbred. Like, you know, they understand amongst themselves that you can't inbreed. So even though we're a small minority, sometimes we may have to go with a yellow person, an Asian. Sometimes we may have to settle for an Indian. Sometimes we may have to go for a North African, because if you look at the categories now in the census, North Africans are considered white. European.
Yeah. So yeah. No, that tripped me out too because I saw that on my job. My job has that description of white people as North African. I was like, what's a white North African?
Correct. So that's what's going on. Yeah. That's definitely going on. So we're not cognizant to it. We're not truthful with ourselves and just truthful in general, and try to just maintain logic in everything we do, no matter who we're interacting with. Because even as Neely Fuller said, and Dr. Francis Cress Wilson said, if we're interacting with non-white people, there's always some room for hostility and some room for negativity and misunderstanding. So no matter who you're with, you have to understand that you're conscious and that you're going to try to maintain truth in everything you say and everything you do, and you're going to try to, and exhibit a passion for tearing down a system of injustice and replacing it with a system of justice.
But are you saying that not all white people are bad?
No, I mean, I'm saying that we won't know that until the system of racism, white supremacy is over. But as it stands, a lot of white people, you know, if you're honest with them and you're calling them out, they'll say, you know what, they'll pull each other aside and say, you know what, you're right. I actually agree with you 100%, and I try not to be, reaping the benefit of it, and I help people, and I try to do this and that, even though they're bullshitting you. But you understand that, some of them are willing, if shit hits the fan, they're willing to say, you know what, this is wrong, even if they don't. Whatever, if they do whatever, the same thing with your African and non-white brothers and sisters. They're saying that they'll stand for you, they understand, but in the meantime, they're going to get their house and they're going to get theirs,
My thing is, how would we recognize white people, people who classify themselves as white, and let's say they see that they're going to be on the losing end, and they decide to switch sides? How would you recognize? How would we recognize in our state a white person that is serious about ending this racism, white supremacy?
I'm glad you answered that. Transfer
There's
of power.
No way to recognize it. There's no
well,
way.
It's not about recognizing it. It's transfer of power.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way.
They're willing to give you their resources.
Yeah, this is
they're
what
willing
I'm
to give you
saying.
their farm and their inheritance, and they're willing to give you their car, and they're willing to help you when you need money. As a lot of my white friends are, I can go to their parents and say, you know what, I'm not able to pay my rent this month, sir, but you'll be able to help me. And they're really, to the point that they'll be like, yeah, I'll help you. You're going to school, not a problem. As long as you're doing something positive, I don't mind helping you. So it comes to a point where you have to use your resources and, not be scared to, cast your bucket down where you are if there's a river of drinking water around you.
And these whites you're referring to, sir, are these college students? What age range are these people? Are they college students? Or are they in their 20s? Have you spoken to people in their 50s, 40s? What's the? I just want to understand that.
Well, I would say that the associates, the people whose company I keep from time to time, are in their 20s, and their parents are, in their 50s and 60s, 70s even.
Okay, so these are people, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, so these are people that really haven't lived life, these are young people. Have you had these deep conversations with older white people whose views may be a little bit more entrenched?
Of course not. Of course not.
Okay.
I don't think that they would allow me in their house after having a conversation with me. Although we have spoken about Obama, and they have agreed with Obama and happy that they live to see a quote-unquote black man in a White House.
Okay, thank you.
We're at the 3-hour mark. I want to see if anybody has any closing remarks before we wrap up and the prayer, but I do want to make sure that I get in. That has not been my observation at all. It has been the exact opposite. I have not seen any evidence that a significant number of white people, a small number of white people, a handful of white people, 5 white people are sincerely interested in ending the system of white supremacy. Now, I have seen some white people, like the folks that are doing that so-called unfair campaign, that will talk about quote-unquote white privilege, that will talk, some of them will even say white supremacy. At the end of the day, they are not really interested in disbanding white terrorism worldwide. And as I've said consistently, I think these are some of the most dangerous white people because they give the impression that there are some white people that are not racist and are really interested in seeing a system of justice where non-white people can be treated quote-unquote fairly. And I'm saying that strategically because that's the way they'll use it. They'll be saying, yeah, I want to see everyone treated fairly. And just that term right there lets you know what their thought process, their udumawazo, if I'm going to use Dr. Ani's term, lets you know exactly what they mean when they say treated fairly. That's why I think it is so ironic, those folks with their campaign against racism, all that term fair, used about 100 times in a segment talking about it, and they're equating fairness with justice, which in my view is racist logic right there. At any rate, I could be incorrect. Again, and I would just encourage you, and can quote Mr. Fuller, white people can show you better than I can tell you. And I would just remind you, for white people, particularly for white people, it's easy for them after they have stomped on non-white people worldwide, stolen, raped, and pillaged. It's easy for them to knock out your rent. That's how I got my phone. A white person paid for my cell phone for 2 years. He's still a racist. He said his family is sitting around telling racist jokes at the holidays. He doesn't say anything. Uncle Bob, Aunt Timothy, whomever, they're sitting around telling racist jokes, and he's not saying anything. But he paid for my cell phone. I take the resources, but I keep in mind, these folks are terrorists. You do not want to trust them around your children, your dog, your wife, your husband, your mother. They're terrorists. They are committed to racism, white supremacy above anything else. Do not be fooled. I don't care if it's Timothy Wise, Jane Elliott. They pay for whatever. Do not be fooled. Dedicated. That's why it's in the definition. Dedicated to racism, white supremacy above all else. Do we have any closing comments, sentence or two anyone would like to get in before we wrap things up?
I just recommend you read Urugu if he hasn't.
And just thank you, Gus. I agree with you 100%. You know, you sum it up best. That's why I listen to your program every time that it comes on. You're able to get to the point, and the point is that we have to also always be aware and be constantly constantly suspicious of white people as being racist, white supremacists, and everything they do and everything they say. And I couldn't have said it better myself, and I thank you. I thank you for that summing up of my statements.
I'd like to say just keep up the information, especially with talking about the Urugu book. Just talking about the book got me a lot, far more interested in reading it. Because, reading Dr. Wilson's book was very hard to do. You know, just got to have a dictionary next to you. So, Urugu is a very interesting book. We're trying to get that. But,
I'm a broke college student, so I guess I'm going to have to get one of my white associates to buy it from me. It's hard trying to read that and trying to keep up with technical manuals. I'm telling you, it is try to keep up. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do to survive. So, I just want to say, just keep up your book club. Keep people interested. I think it's a whole lot helpful than what you may think. You may say you're losing interest, but I would say this is going on tape or recorded, and there's nothing like having something recorded that somebody years down the line, could say, "Hey, man, this guy knows. This guy's he's on to something." And just having Mr. Fuller on recording, that's going to be priceless for the future. So I thank you for that effort there.
Right on. We good? Anybody else? Any of the other folks? Sir Anton, your line was open as well. His audio clip was included. The Marvin Gaye piece, Sir Anton, cafepress.com, constructive concepts. Anybody else? Quick sentence, anything to get in before we wrap up? Right on. Was music to my ears. Thank you everybody for calling in. Was outstanding hearing from all the folks. I won't do names or numbers and all that jazz, but just thank you. If you called in, sharing, always great to get participation from non-white people. Especially loved hearing the non-white female talking about her lack of sympathy for the white people who lost their homes and what have you out with the fires. Didn't feel bad for them at all. At all. I loved how it was stated. Some racists who have more problems, maybe that's less time and energy that they can put into terrorizing black people. They'll have to focus on what they're going to do, where they're going to stay, getting their priorities back together. That will take away some of their resources for terrorizing black people. Phenomenal. That's a totally different way of thinking, but I think that is that's what it sounds like when your white chip begins to be deactivated. Totally changing the way that we think about and emotionally relate to white people. Love it. And they've been playing a lot of those photos and such as well all week long, as though we feel so bad and resources and all that. Whatever. That's probably Jerry Sandusky's cousin or what have you. At any rate, quickie before we roll. And if anyone wants to do the prayer, be thinking of that too, so we can wrap up. Prayer. Quickie. Number one, if you check Internet Movie Database for the film Snow White, I just thought this was interesting. If you look, the recommended films, one of the recommended films that pops up at the top of the page is King Kong. I just thought that was interesting. Number two, you all talking about war films. The white person who is the director for Prometheus, he's also the director for Black Hawk Down. I don't know if you all saw that film about white people and their military expedition in Somalia. Same person directed that film, and he also directed G.I. Jane, Body of Work with Demi Moore, where we were talking about war films and propaganda. I haven't seen Prometheus, but I suspect that sort of film, even though it's sci-fi, is war propaganda too. The threat of some non-white entity, alien entity or whatever. And I think you all, I haven't seen it, but you all said they were in some sort of defense area or what have you. That they recognized there was some sort of danger where they were and they shouldn't have been there, or they needed to get out. I suspect that sort of film also encourages aggressive militaristic behavior. I think what white people would call that the preemptive strike. There's a danger out there and we got to get it before it gets us. I think that sort of film qualifies. And I think that same director, he also did the first Aliens, which is very similar. Same sort of film, and I would say that too is war propaganda. There's some sort of threat. We got to be organized and ready to act violently in a coordinated manner, or we'll be victimized. We got to be prepared. There's some sort of non-white entity out there that could get us. Just body of work. Not that I'm telling folks, camp out in front of the television. Also, quickly, as I said, I really don't like talking to people. I prefer to be by myself. I was by myself reading, preparing for programs yesterday, and a victim, black female, she came up and she started talking. She just talks a lot. I mean, woof, she is super chatty, and she's super victimized too. Like, she's all into white Jesus and everything. So it's like I want to claw my eyeballs out sometimes. It's like, man, I know you're a victim, but gee whiz. But she's talking yesterday, and she's talking about her church and how she got into some problems. And I saw that the people she was in church with were white people. And she had invited me. I was going to go. I was all down to go and to investigate, see what this is all about. But she said she got in trouble, and they kicked her out. And so I'm listening, and she's telling me about, what happened, some of the details and everything. And I was thinking, like, wow, it seems like they were practicing racism at the church. Like, they just, black person they didn't like, and, we're tired of you speaking out and giving your opinion. Get out of here. And she kept talking, and she said, I asked her, I said, do you know if they kicked any other people out of the church? And she said, yes, they kicked out a female, and they kicked out a male. And I said, oh, okay. And I was going to ask, are these black people? And she said, the female is my mother-in-law, and then they kicked out another male. And I was like, look. And she said, I was looking, and this is her talking. She said, I was looking, and I was like, you know what? The people that you kicked out, they've all been Jamaican. She said she was Jamaican too. She said, just looking at this, I would say that I think you all are biased. And I was like, yep, I was thinking the same thing. I didn't use the term bias, but they're just racist. That's what it is. They're practicing their religion, the religion of white supremacy. At any rate, it was fascinating. I wish I had recorded it just to hear how she eventually got to, yes, the same thing I was thinking the whole time. You're just going to worship with a bunch of racists, and this is about the size of what you can expect to happen. At any rate, yeah. Anybody want to do the prayer to wrap us up for the broadcast? Prayer volunteer.
Super victimized.
For sure. Prayer volunteers. Anybody? I can do it. It's no big deal. Right on. I'll assume somebody mailed me a prayer, and I don't know if I have it. If you all give me a second, I will get it. And again, people that have mailed the prayers in, thank you kindly. I definitely try to read them on the program. If you don't want to participate or don't have the ability to participate, no worries. If you email it to me, I'll read it on the program.
Well, I guess I'll do the prayer.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Hello?
Yes, sir. If you let me do the promo, that way I can close out. You can have the final word. We'll be back tomorrow. That's Sunday, July 1st. Again, Sylvia Coleman, Black Survivors of Sexual Abuse. She'll be here tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Definitely want folks to dial in, questions, suggestions. Really looking forward to the broadcast. Tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Invest if you think the program is constructive. And thanks again to everybody who dialed in. Really enjoyed it. Take it away, sir.
Creator, please give us the ability to end the system of racism, white supremacy, and replace it with the system of justice. Please give us the energy and the ability and power and the agency to do everything in our power to prepare for a system of justice and to prepare for your intervention in our affairs. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Ashe. Context of White Supremacy signing out. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Thank you all for listening in.